Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
I hate the commentators. I hate the ring announcers. I hate the production. I hate the wrestling. I hate the interviews. I hate their promo style. I hate the way the shows are presented. I hate the way the shows are paced. I hate the video packages. I hate everything about this company with every fiber of my being.
And Rich Crage.
You know, he comes out and you're just like, ugh, gross. Like, look at this guy. In all the best ways possible. He's just the slimiest looking guy you've ever seen. I love him so much. He's so good.
And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what's happening? How are you?
I am Joe. How are you?
I'm doing well. Ready to get this week, this Flagship underway, man. We got a lot to cover this week, and people are asking, what's the banter going to be? What's the topic? And honestly, I don't know if we have one, because I kind of wanted to get into Sika right away. I don't know if did you have any planned banter or pre-show stuff you wanted to discuss? I suppose I should ask that.
Just dying to get into Sika. Huh? You got some big Sika. You got some hot Sika takes.
I don't know if I have hot Sika takes, but I've been watching a lot of the Wild Samoans, so I'm kind of I'm ready to go, ready to rearing up to talk. No, but if you had any got any baseball? What do you got? So people in the chat room are making fun of me. I had a bird incident before the show started. That's why we're starting a little bit late here. The nurse and I had to help a baby sparrow in our backyard, which Aaron Taub said that's the most mid-30s. How do you know you're in your mid-30s? It was your wife and you had to tend to a baby sparrow in your backyard. But we're good now.
Whoa. Mid-30s.
He said late 30s. Sorry. I made it mid-30s, but it's in fact, I did actually just realize, because I was like, whoa, mid-30s, pal. And then I was like, wait a minute. Wait, I have crossed over. The threshold.
No, that's late, sir.
Yeah, I believe the nurse has also crossed over into the late. So, yeah.
Wow. You guys are the same age?
No. Same birth year, though. Same birth year.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I mean. You're saying,
yeah. Like it's like we're on both ends of the spectrum. I'm very early in the year. She's very late in the year.
Yeah, but if you were baseball players, you'd both be in your age 36 season. Right?
Well, right now season. I have aged up. Probably. I'm 37 now. So.
Right.
She's still holding on to on her 9th or 10th, 27th birthday. So it's.
Guys getting old as fuck, huh?
It is.
How's it feel?
Sucks. Yeah, not great. Yeah. Actually, no, it feels fine. I feel fine.
You haven't reached random aches and pains you can't explain age yet.
No, I can explain all my aches and pains. No, I know where all mine are from. Yeah, no, every one of mine, I'm like, yeah, that happened for basketball. Yeah, that was that. And she, she's obviously the rock climber, so all of her injuries are like, yep, that's my that's my back, that's my finger, that's my wrist. I know where all this happened. Yeah, so I don't wake up and like my back's out. You know what I mean? I can't wake up because my back has been pulled. Like I know exactly. I sit down or I stand up. When I wake up in the morning, it is bad. Lots of cracking, lots of stuff. But I know where I'm like, yeah, we played an hour and a half of basketball yesterday. That'll do it. So full court. You haven't, especially on the full court days. I know when those are hurting.
You haven't reached. Reaching for something on a high shelf could be potentially hazardous age.
Yeah. No. Still good on that. That's really how you kind of have to judge age. Is not necessarily, it's just a number. Time is on your side, as you like to say these days. It's fine as long as you keep yourself in tip-top shape, which, I believe I keep myself in pretty decent shape here. It's the sneezing and you get hurt, the reaching for something on a shelf and you get hurt, the waking up and, oh my God, I don't know, my hamstring just hurts now. None of those really happen. So that's good, but hopefully we can avoid that and not have to get to that.
You're not going to avoid it. Nobody avoids it.
The aches and pains wait for no man. Yeah.
No. Yeah, you can't avoid it. I mean, you could try to avoid it. I mean, it's just creeping death, man.
Jeez, thought you were time's on your side, guy.
It is. Well, you could do both.
I guess you could be both. That
kind
is
of tie in.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of creeping death, awful segue.
This is not how you're going to segue to Sika. No. We got to find a different way. There is no way. Unless you had... I hope you had another topic that you were going to get to, because if that's your segue to our bio, our eulogy of Sika, no, I'm afraid, sir, I have to...
See, there's
Copa America's going. I got to pull the... What would I pull? Which card would I pull? I don't know anything about the football, the beautiful game. So what card would I pull for that? We got... Is it yellow and red, right? Are the two cards? I don't know anything about soccer, so don't get mad at me.
It's a red card. What do they call Dave, the something steamroller?
The San Jose Steamroller.
The San Jose Steamroller. Well, see, sometimes there have been times over the years on the show where you just trample all over a joke that I'm setting up. And no, sir, I was not going to segue to Sika by making a creeping death joke. That was the setup to make people think I was going to do that and start tugging their collars, okay? But then you jumped in and ruined the bit. But I was going to say that you had this baby bird you were dealing with in your yard. In my backyard for the last 3 days on my back porch, I've had just a wing of a bird, and I have no idea how it got there or what. I mean, it could have just fallen from the sky. There's no other dead bird anywhere in the yard.
Like not a full wing, not feathers, a wing.
A full wing with the feathers still attached. And like, a dirty sparrow, not like a cool bird.
Yeah,
like
right. your common
bird,
house sparrow. Yeah, your common house sparrow.
Yeah. Just the wing. And before you even ask, Miss Maggie Moo is not allowed outside. Indoor cat. So she's not responsible for this. The dog can't see shit. The dog's not attacking birds these days.
If that dog with no eyes can grab a sparrow out of the air, and then more power to her, man. That would be awesome.
The dog with literally no eyes and no hearing is not out there ripping wings off of birds. She don't even know if she's awake or asleep half the time or all of the time. How would you know? I sit there and stare at the dog, and I think to myself, how does this dog know whether she's asleep or awake?
It's got to be terrible. That's a great point that I never thought of. And you mentioned that too about how you don't know if she's asleep or not. Because it's just like sitting there and like, sometimes dogs will breathe heavy when they're awake or whatever. You don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to walk up to the dog and scare her. But then it's like, well, I don't know. Does she know what the difference? It's. At
first, I couldn't tell whether she was asleep or awake, but I've now gotten used to it. So I can tell the difference now. But I wonder if she knows. And here's the other thing I wonder about. When she dreams, can she like see shit in her dreams?
A great philosophical question. I don't know. Yeah.
What
do blind people see in their dreams? I guess is a let's get down to it. Let's talk.
Because she used to be able to see, so she knows what things look like.
Yes. So I think she could probably still formulate,
vision.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean when I say that. Like, when she dreams, does she see things and does she hear things in her dreams? Because if that's the case, right? When she wakes up, she must be like, fuck, back to this shit.
Yeah, damn it.
Right? Like,
can't see shit now. There's nothing now. Yeah, so she's dreams are great. Yeah, dreams are the best for her because she's out there chasing balls, running around in the backyard, seeing all this, playing around in the grass and stuff. Then she wakes up and darkness. It's the opposite.
Wakes up and back to nothingness.
Or do you think she's able to kind of piece together what she saw before? You know what I mean? One
like
sense is gone. Yeah. Or no, when she's awake now.
Oh, does she think visually?
Yes. Right.
And is like, fuck. And since she's a dog and she's dumb, like she probably doesn't understand. She's like, fuck, why can't I really see? What's happening? You know, I think about that a lot. I feel real bad for her. It's a pretty awful existence.
For dogs, though, man, as long as that smell's still going, that's all they care about. Their eyes are terrible anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, it's nice to see. I'm not saying it's not, but being able to smell and taste, that's.
I know she can smell because
that's how she finds you now.
As soon as I start cooking, she's all over me.
Yeah, tap. Yep.
Tap, circling around. And you tell me how this dog always knows what room I'm in.
They're amazing, man.
She always knows what room I'm in.
You got the musk. Yeah, you got that musk. Like I said, one of my guys, his scent is going, or his eyesight's going a little bit. His hearing is going a little bit. He could still kind of, if you yell at him or if he really wants to, he can. But you could tell that a little bit here and there. He can't really see as well, and hearing a little bit. But if I walk to another room, he knows because he follows that scent, man. That's what dogs do. They're incredible. Because he'll be dead asleep, and I know he can't hear me, and I know he can barely see me. If I leave this room and go to another room, within a minute, he's there. Ready to go again, man.
It's incredible. Yeah. Just she knows what room I'm in. And now the cat, she's a fucking idiot. The dog will sometimes the cat will just be sitting there minding her business, to be fair. And the dopey dog who can't see anything will just, the San Jose steamroll the cat, walk right into her. And you know what the cat gives the dog? That little cat bitch slap.
Yeah.
With the one paw. Get the fuck out of here. Like test me, dog. These claws will come out.
Yeah, let's go.
You know?
I'll rip your eyes
out.
All right, well, no, I can't, but that's...
Yeah.
I'll fuck you up another way. I'll find another way.
Yeah. I'll find something else to rip out. These claws are retracted for now, but you could try me. The dog will scurry the other way or whatever. But I don't know how that wing got in the backyard. Just a bird wing.
Yeah, I'm guessing some animal, but it's like you think you would find like a carcass or something else. I wonder if a hawk was grabbed a sparrow and just ripped it up and dropped the. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Said I got no need for this.
Right. Got any bobcats back there? I don't know what you guys got in Texas.
I don't fucking know.
The hell's in your backyard?
I've been here 15 years. I'm still waiting to see a wild boar. Never laid my physical eyes on them.
Yeah, do you want to though? We've talked about those before.
I do. Yeah, they're dead on the side of the road a lot, but I've never seen one.
Never seen one live. Yeah,
or dead. No, or dead is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. You never even see. Wow. Okay. All right. Interesting.
So I'm upset. Like I never get to see the. I've never gotten to see one. I've seen some crushed armadillos. We got a few of those. I think we have bobcat. No bears, though. No bears. It's one of the first questions I asked TLB when I met her. She lived out in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, you got bears out here?
Bears in Texas?
Yeah. She's like, no bears.
I don't think Texas is well known for bears, but okay.
I thought maybe there'd be some bears. I don't know. Because I'm from New Jersey. There's bears all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find. Are there bears in New Jersey?
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, my God. You got to be careful with the garbage and everything. Yeah.
I don't like that. Don't love that at all.
They had the, one of the governors like banned the bear hunting, and then the bears like overran the state within like 6 months, and they had to bring back the bear hunting because it was just like you had bears mauling people and
I didn't know bears in New Jersey were a thing. I'm
bears
fascinated.
In New Jersey are a big time thing. Big time thing. Famous Sopranos episode with the bear in the backyard after Tony and Carmela split up.
They are an integral part of the state's natural heritage and a vital component of healthy ecosystems. So since the 1980s, the Garden State's black bear population has been increasing and expanding its range both southward and eastward from the forested areas of northwest New Jersey. So, all right.
Now, it's mostly a northern New Jersey thing, but yeah, it's infested with it. Bears everywhere in New Jersey. Like, so if you're driving around North Jersey sometimes on the highway, everyone will have to stop sometimes because there'll be a mama bear and her cubs following her like in a line. taking their sweet time walking across the highway, because believe me, they're not in a rush. You know, if you're a kid in New Jersey, you are taught, if you ever see a bear cub, don't go anywhere near it.
No, yeah, that more people need to be educated. I've been in national parks, and there was one time we were in Grand Teton National Park, and we saw a cub on a hike, and someone said, "Oh my God, there's a cub over there. There's a little baby bear over there if everybody wants to go see." And a bunch of people rushed towards it. And me and the nurse went, we're going the opposite way.
Yeah.
Because guess who's near the cub?
Yeah.
Guess who's coming for the baby?
Guess who's looking for that cub?
Right. So I'm going to go that way where the cub isn't. And you can all come here and take your pictures and your selfies and all that sort of stuff. But that's just perfect for national parks where people are routinely just gored by bison and, burnt alive in geysers and stuff because they just cannot wait to try to kill themselves.
Burnt alive in geysers.
It happens all the time. It happens way frequently. Just the other day, a guy was walking on the guy. Pierce Brosnan. Remember Pierce Brosnan? He got in trouble. He was walking on one of the geyser fields a couple of months ago, and he got fined and suspended. It was great because the national parks on Instagram, which I'm sure you all follow, so I don't even know why I'm telling you that. I know you're all in on following all the national parks on Instagram. The Yellowstone National Park said recently we made there was a large fine levied against and they listed the guy's name, and everybody was like, it said Pierce Brosnan, and everybody was just like, oh, that guy's got a pretty famous name or whatever. And then 20 comments in, someone's like, no, dude, that's actually that Pierce Brosnan who got in trouble for it. So it ended up being a pretty fun little thing because everybody's like, good for that guy. He's got quite the fun name there. And it's like, no, it's literally James Bond was walking on the geyser field and got fined by, I don't know. You got to talk to these people, man. I don't know.
Do they know that the red hot boiling water comes out of it?
I guess they do not. I don't know. I would assume they would, but apparently they do not. It boggles my mind. But it happened. Yeah, I just saw a guy just a couple days ago was doing it, walking on there. People put their hands in there all the time. Sometimes people fall in there completely and die. And it just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like there should be. That's my thought on it. It's like, and they have a lot of railings. Like they make it very obvious that you shouldn't walk in there. And every time that happens, I think, you know what? Just get rid of the guardrails and just let these people just die. It's over.
There's probably signs all over the place.
Signs everywhere. And you're thinking, as you read the signs, like, why do they need a sign to say, hey, by the way, the geyser has boiling hot water and it will, take all of your skin off in 2 seconds and kill you. Don't step on it and don't put your hand in there, but yet people will still do it. So it's like, why do they need the sign? And then you realize that's why they need the sign. So
maybe for the thrill, like they're just like a.
I suppose, kind of I don't know. I have other ways. I feel like there's other ways to
get some excitement in your life.
Yeah, I feel like there's some other things. Professional wrestling.
Other than hold your hand over a geyser and tempt fate.
Right. I feel like there's got to be something else.
That sounds like the kind of, to be fair, that sounds like the kind of thing my friends would bet on.
To see who would do it.
Who would hold their hand over the geyser the longest and bet lots of money on it. That's something they would absolutely do. In fact, I know they would do that.
So do you think they would bet ahead of time and then, or would they everybody would take their turn?
It would just take one guy to be to challenge one of the, you ain't got the balls to put your hand over that geyser for 20 seconds. And then the other guy's going to go, dude, Vito, fuck you. I'll put my hand over that geyser 30 seconds. You got to give me $100 if I do it. And then it's just going to snowball from there. Then the other guy's going to say he'll do it for 60 seconds, but he wants $200. Before you know it, someone's going to be standing on top of the geyser and there's going to be thousands of dollars balled up in people's fists. And then that's how people die fucking with the geyser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it all kind of works together too, because there's a lot of bear aware signs all over those national parks that have all the bears of be bear aware. Don't have food here. Don't do this here. Don't do that there. So
none of my friends would fuck with bears because they're taught that.
Right. So Sal from Jersey he'd put his hand in front of the geyser for a minute and 10 seconds, but he ain't fucking. He's bear aware though, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, he sees that bear cub. He's hightailing it out of there because he knows what's around the corner. Because you're taught that at a young age. Don't fuck with bear cubs. Don't fuck with the bears. Bears will destroy.
They'll eat your face in 2 seconds. They'll eat your face in 2 seconds.
Yeah, how strong they are, and
They will rip your
fucking
face off
Jungle
and
Book.
eat your body in 2 seconds.
Absolutely. For fun. They don't even need or want to eat you, but if you piss them off, that's exactly what they'll do. And if they're rummaging in your garbage can, why do you think they're rummaging in your garbage can? That motherfucker's hungry. So now you're the meal if you go fuck.
Right.
You
So
don't
maybe
fuck
just
with
let them
bears.
let them have at it. Let them have your garbage and figure it out later.
Yeah.
There you go. That's we said we weren't going to banter about anything, and then we did 20 minutes of banter. But let's get into the professional wrestling world here. We have a lot to cover on this week's show. We're going to preview Forbidden Door coming up this Sunday. As a reminder, we are going live immediately after Forbidden Door Sunday for Instant Reaction Live. That is available on our $10 tier. So if you're listening to this on the free podcast feed and you want to listen to Instant Reaction Live, definitely recommend getting up on that $10 tier as soon as possible. A lot of people do it last minute. People do it the hour before the show. Some people do it as we're going live. Don't do that. Don't miss any of the show. Upgrade right now to the $10 tier. Make sure you're ready to go for Sunday. Instant Reaction Live should be a hell of a reaction show for a show that looks on paper to be pretty damn good. But we'll talk a little bit about the build and preview this show coming up this Sunday, Forbidden Door. Some updates on Ricky Starks. There was a lot of different stories out there about Ricky Starks, what's been going on, what happened to him, whether he was arrested, all this other stuff. We'll try to cut through the muck and tell you what we know is going on with Ricky Starks. Donovan Dijak is a free agent, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I did a written piece over at flagshippatreon.com about Dijak and where he could end up next and a little bit about his career. You can go read that for free. That is a free post over there at flagshippatreon.com. So if you want to read that, just head on over there. But we'll talk a little bit more about Dijak here tonight. The VOW 30 under 30. We did our Now Annual. This is back-to-back years we've done this, so I'm calling it Now Annual. Voices of Wrestling 30 under 30, the 30 best wrestlers under the age of 30. We'll discuss the voting results, the final list, and the reactions to it as well. That'll come later in the show. And we'll also catch you up on CMLL. A lot been going on in the world of CMLL. We've been watching it. We'll catch you up on the highlights. Mystico's 20th anniversary, special shows, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hechicero, and some other stuff going on in CMLL. A lot of really fun stuff, a lot of interesting stuff there. We haven't done a CMLL check-in in a while, so that'd be a good opportunity to do that. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, we probably should start with 2 deaths, and we'll start with the first one, the death that happened earlier this week. It was Sika, one of the obviously legendary members of the Anoa'i family, the father of Rosie and Roman Reigns, passed away this week at the age of 79. And he's really, well, actually, I'll preface this question. I'll start with this, Joe, because somebody asked us, and I don't know that I had the right answer for it, and I don't know if you do either, but I figured you might have a better chance than most people. Did Afa and Sika begin the quote-unquote like Wild Islanders gimmick? Like, were they the first guys, or were there people before them that did it? Because I tried to do a little bit of research, try to dig up a little bit. Somebody said, are these guys, are they like, because we've seen that gimmick done so many times over and over and over again. Are those guys like, did they kind of start it? Is Sika the guy that sort of started that, or were there people before him maybe that kind of, you know, laid the groundwork of that?
The Polynesian savage
right.
kind of, you know, deal.
I guess Curtis Iakea, sorta, right?
I mean, you could probably credit them for popularizing it. I don't know. I can't say definitively whether they were the first high-profile example of that gimmick. I don't know. But if anyone else was doing it, you know, like with the bones and the bare feet, like that's what you mean, right?
Right. They're like, because now that template is, we all know it well. It's the coming out with a bone or a piece of meat or a chicken or whatever, bare feet, hard head, can't be headbutt. You know, usually
those are the old stereotypes of it. Now,
exactly, yeah, it's been updated, obviously, thankfully a little bit.
They're not really, they're not really eating raw fish and coming out with bones anymore. But I mean, you still have guys like Jacob Fatu wrestling barefoot, and presented as wild men, you know, just toned down to meet the standards of today's society. But, you know, Jacob Fatu, before he ever, you know, when he came to MLW, when it was there in the early days, he never spoke or anything. You know, he wasn't eating raw fish and acting like he didn't know English, but, you know, it was like a toned down version of what I guess his uncles, right, Are they his uncles, or I'm not even trying to?
They are. Let me see where they are. I have that. I've been looking at the family tree all day.
They would be his one of them is his one of them would be his grandfather, right?
Yeah, let me find Joseph on here to see.
No, he came from the Fatu family though, so he's Fatu's son.
Yeah.
Whose daughter did Fatu marry? That's the key here.
Fatu married. Let me see here. This tree is just getting. As more and more wrestlers join, it gets bigger and bigger. He married. Let's see. God, I'm trying to figure this out now. Here, Here,
I got it right here. So, okay, so
Vera. All right, looks like Vera Anawai.
Fatu. Fatu was the son of not Afa or Sika. He was a son
Tonga
of one
kid.
of the other.
He's Tonga Kid's son.
It's Fatu. I'm talking about Sam Fatu, Tonga Kid. We're talking about the same guy. See, this is why I don't want to do this, because it gets so confusing.
Right. Jacob Fatu, Tonga Kid, that Jacob Fatu is Tonga Kid's son, and Tonga Kid is from the relationship of Vera Anawai
and someone else she married, an in-law.
Yes, correct.
Vera Anawai is a sister of Afa and Sika. So Afa and Sika would be Tonga Kid's uncles, and they would be Jacob Fatu's great uncles. That's
correct.
The answer to the question.
Yes.
All right. So that answers the question I asked. That's the first of many times we're going to do this during this obituary. Probably.
Yes, I have it up. I have the family tree up, but it's going to take a while to find the person I want to talk about and then get the right direction and all that. Because there's lines and there's dotted lines. Because then you get the blood brothers, and that's when it all kind of gets thrown for a loop. The quote unquote blood brothers part, which I think
the rock side, rock side of the tree is not technically blood related.
Right. People might not know that. And maybe this is a good opportunity to do that as we talk about, because
the Mayaveas.
Because the Mayaveas are not technically related, but they're quote unquote blood brothers.
And they consider themselves all
correct. Related. Starting with Peter Maivia and Leah Maivia, then they're technically quote unquote blood brothers, and that's when they sort of join the family tree at that point. But other than Peter Maivia, when you really look at like who starts this whole family tree, the big level of, okay, now we're really starting to get into the pro wrestlers. Obviously, there's Peter Maivia, but in the Anawai family, it's Afa and Sika. They're the top two guys, and now everything sort of derives from those guys moving on down to your Yokozunas, your Rosies, your Roman Reigns', your Samus, your Manus, your all those guys all kind of come from that lineage of the Afa and Sika.
And as you said, Sika's children are Rosie, the wrestler best known as Rosie, and Roman Reigns. Those are Sika's kids.
Yes.
Afa's kids are Samu, Manu, of who was once aligned with Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. What did they call their little group? I forget.
Yeah, he was there for a very brief, very, very brief period. Yeah, he was part of what the hell was that? Legacy. I don't know if they were the Legacy or Legacy. I always called them just Legacy.
And then LA Smooth, and who never really made it on the national level. And then he also had two daughters, one of which married Gary Albright. So Gary Albright was a son-in-law of Afa. So, and then of course, Samu's son is Lance Anoa'i from, MLW, All Japan, or was it Noah? Noah. So that's Samu's son, and that would be the grandson of Afa and the grandnephew of Sika. So he's like a whole nother line. He's the next line in the next generation, the next line. No, actually, he would be the same line as, he would be the same line as Jacob Fatu.
Right.
Yeah, as a cousin. He'd be a cousin of Jacob Fatu and the Usos. They're all on the same generational line. And if you want to throw The Rock's daughter in there, because they consider themselves family, that'd be that line. Solo Sikoa would be that same line, that same generational line. And if you really want to get crazy, they kind of incorporate the Snookas into it all too, even though they're not really related, because The Rock considers, what's her name? His cousin. Why is her name escaping me?
Yeah. Whatever.
Snooka's daughter.
Yeah.
to make it, extra confusing. But yeah, so Sika, one half of the Wild Samoans, the brother of Afa, they were the Wild Samoans. And again, one of their sisters is the mother of the Tonga kid and Umaga and Rikishi. That's why they're all Fatus and not Anoes, because their mother married a Fatu. So Rikishi was Salofa Fatu, and Umaga was Edward Fatu, and Tonga Kid was Sam Fatu. So, and Rikishi's kids obviously are the Usos and Solo Sikoa, as we pointed out. And Tonga Kid's kid is Jacob Fatu. So, got all that straight now, Rich?
Got it all, yeah. Yeah, that's like you said, throw in the snookas and you get a whole nother. But yeah, I think we got it now. I think that's all the major American, all the major pro wrestling factors in there is we got it all set. So
yeah. So Sika passes away, obviously. And to get back to your original question, I don't know. Usually when you think someone's first at something, the answer is no. Somebody had him beat. But, there were obviously wrestlers of Polynesian descent pushed as being from Polynesian descent long before the Wild Samoans.
Of course,
but were they doing, but your question is, were they doing that gimmick? Were they doing that act? Whether they were Samoans or Hawaiians or Tongans or from Fiji, were there wrestlers doing sort of that, wild Polynesian gimmick? I don't know the answer to that. So you kind of put me on the spot there. I don't know. It's a good question, though. It would have to be, if there was someone doing it, they'd have to be doing it in the late 60s, early 70s, because that's as far back as the Wild Samoans go, to the early 70s. So that's where you would want to start the research on something like that. The Afa got into wrestling before Sika, and then they really broke in Canada. Stampede,
yeah.
And I think Vancouver. But I think what the Wild Samoans are best known for is that early 80s WWF run, where they were there in 1980, and then the pit stop for a couple of years in Mid-South, where they also won a bunch of tag team titles before they came back to the WWF. This says they stopped off in Georgia too. I'm not familiar with their Georgia run. It must have been brief, because there's plenty of footage of them in Mid-South. Because they came to the WWF in 80, or WWF, I guess. Well, was it the three W's? Who knows? But
I think when they came in, I want to say early. Yeah, I think they probably were a little bit WWF. They had to be,
I forget
right?
when they dropped the letter.
Yeah, I forget either, because they were. When did they start there? 1980. Is that what you said?
1980 would out there, yeah.
I think that's probably right there. They may have been right in there. They may have been right in there.
I think it's two W's by then.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I think it changed over in 80.
So that's when they initially got there, and like I said, they left. They won the tag team titles. That was their first reign. They had 3 reigns. Okay, they won the tag team titles in 80. They lost them to Martel and Gurria, and then that's when they left the territory and went to Mid-South. So they are in Mid-South for like a year and a half, 2 years. They win those tag team titles a bunch of times. They come back to the WWF in, I guess, 82 or 83. And they win the tag team titles twice more. The second time they lost them to Backlund and Pedro Morales on, I think, a Shea Stadium show.
Yeah, the showdown, the famous one, the showdown in Shea or whatever, showdown at Shea or whatever. Is that show on the network or on Peacock or whatever?
No,
I've never watched that.
Those,
it's not shit. All right.
It's and that of course, when Backlund and Morales, they were world champ and intercontinental champ at the time. So they immediately vacated the titles, and then the Wild Samoans immediately won them back in a tournament. So the gimmick was they lost to the champs, but because you couldn't hold 2 titles at the same time, they immediately vacated and the Wild Samoans won them back. And then that was their 3rd reign, and they lost them for the final time in what I would consider their most famous match, when they lost the tag team titles to Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson in 1983, because that's a match that, even though it was a little before my time, I was way too young to have remembered a match like that in 1983. It was on all the very early Coliseum video compilations, and they would replay that finish on TV a lot. So to me, that might be the Wild Samoans' most famous match, because it had the famous finish where I know Lou Albano always managed the heel tag teams in those days, and he managed a lot of the heel tag team champions. And Grand Wizard would generally manage the challengers to Bruno and Backlund. He would manage the singles guys, and Lou Albano would generally manage the heel tag teams. So he managed the Wild Samoans. And the finish of that match, I know Albano cost them the match, either with a chair, some kind of weapon, the old finish where one of them ducks and he accidentally hits one of his own guys. And then that's how Johnson and Atlas won the titles in what I think is the most famous and well-known match of the Wild Samoans, who were really mainstays in that territory, throughout the early 80s, with the exception of those couple of years that they were in Mid-South. And, they hung around after they lost the belts. They never won them again. They did get into a feud with Ventura and Adonis over the titles as baby faces, which a lot of people probably don't remember their baby face tag team run for a couple months there, where they were chasing Adonis and Ventura. And then that was really it for them. They left the territory for good as a tag team in 84. But then Sika would come back as a singles wrestler.
Yeah, a lot of people
86.
forget about this. This is a weird run here, this 86 to 88 run, where he starts as a single and then actually gets some pretty big matches. He has a match against Hulk Hogan on one of the Saturday Night's Main Events. I forget which one. And then does a team that a lot of people probably don't remember, but there's videos out there. There's obviously, taped matches, and it did last, maybe not for a long, long time, but, for several months. Sika and Kamala. And it was like, Mr. Fuji and Kimchi, and they had both managers, Kamala and Sika. It's very strange. They kept kind of the same, wild characters. They just decided to throw Kamala in place of Afa, but essentially the same. Although Sika felt like the secondary guy in that, where they were more pushing Kamala at that time than Sika. But it's a very interesting team that I always forget happens, and every so often they pop up and I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I'll watch them versus like the Can-Am Connection or whatever, and I'm like, oh wow, what the heck, Kamala and Sika, what a weird team.
Well, you mentioned earlier King Curtis. When Sika came in, he was managed by the Wizard, which was King Curtis Iokea, and that was a bizarre pairing, and that I do remember vividly from when I was a little kid, when Sika came back without Afa, with the Wizard as his manager. And that was short-lived, and like you said, he transitioned into the tag team with Kamala. And they weren't like a huge push team or anything. The thing about Sika was, when he first came back, like you said, you mentioned, he had the Saturday Night's Main Event title match against Hogan. And he also had other random sporadic title matches against Hogan over the years. Hogan, obviously, which is very well known, he loved to wrestle bigger guys because Hogan was so big himself, but he wanted to be an underdog. So they had to find like these giants for him to wrestle all the time. But Hogan was so big that it was hard to find people where he would come across like an underdog, right? So you either had to find these giants like King Kong Bundy and One Man Gang, or whoever the fuck, or guys like Sika who came across like monsters, so Hogan could come across like an underdog.
Yeah,
he
or
really
Kamala. We always talked about Kamala. People forget that a lot of the during the Andre run, Kamala was the one filling in the blanks when Andre was making towns. They'd have Kamala face Hulk Hogan or whatever. But yeah, basic.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Kamala was the house show opponent during the television build to Hogan and Andre. But so anyway, Sika never really got a house show program with him, but he got the Saturday Night's Main Event match, and he would get random one-off title matches against Hogan here or there, even though he never had a full-fledged program with him, when he came back in 86. But then what was I saying as I was just going on and on when I was off the air? Now I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so Sika came back with the Wizard, And, that was that era where he'd get those, random one-off matches against Hogan. And then, like you said, they kind of phased out the Wizard, and they ended up pairing him with Kamala. And, that was really a lower mid-card team. They didn't really push that team very hard. And
they lost.
You're right.
Yeah, they lost a lot of matches. In watching the match, it'd be like they were kind of the not a jobber team, but they were the team that would lose to the team that was in the mix for the tag team titles or whatever. It was a good win to get. Like I said, I watched a couple. There were a couple matches with the Can-Am Express, and it was like a really good, big time win for. And they'd have to work pretty hard. Zink and Martel would have to work really hard to beat them, but they would eventually beat them. And it was like, what a big win. Gorilla Monsoon talking about, what a big win for the Can-Am Express. Connection to top the Sika, former WWF tag team champion, and Kamala, one of the so they were done as like they weren't winning a whole lot, but it was done as like it was still a big-ish deal. It wasn't like they were facing Iron Mike Sharp and whoever. It was still a relatively big deal.
It was as a
to
push
beat those
team.
guys.
It wasn't jobbers is the point. But yeah, what I was saying when I was knocked off the show was Sika's match with Hogan on Saturday night's main event is probably his most famous match due to the time period it took place in, the peak of Hulkamania, Hulk Hogan, Saturday night's main event. It's probably his most viewed match of all time. More eyes have probably seen that match than any other match he ever had. But still, when I think about Sika,
that not to interrupt, that 9.7 rating on NBC for us. Saturday night's main event 12. So probably
exactly. That's my point.
The highest viewership he ever had. Yeah, 9.7 rating of Randy Savage defeating the Honky Tonk Man by disqualification. So Honky keeps his title. Hulk Hogan versus Sika, King Kong Bundy versus Paul Orndorff, and then the Hart Foundation versus the Young Stallions.
That doesn't sound like. Run that down again. Honky Tonk Man versus Randy Savage.
So you had Honky Tonk versus Savage, IC title. Savage beats him, but by disqualification. So Honky keeps his title. Hulk Hogan defends the WWF World Heavyweight title against Sika. Obviously defeats him. King Kong Bundy defeats Paul Orndorff. And then in a WWF Tag Team title match, the Hart Foundation defeats the Young Stallions.
Okay, those are the matches that aired. Hershey, Pennsylvania?
This is Hershey, Pennsylvania. And yeah, that was the big... I want to say that was the quote-unquote beginning of the Mega Powers too, right? If I remember correctly, I watched all the Saturday Night's main events when they first got on the network before Peacock, and I want to say that is either the one, maybe it's a little bit later, where somebody is beating down Savage and Hogan comes in for the save, and that's kind of the beginning of the, we're the Mega Powers thing. I don't know if it's that one. It might be the next one, but...
No, I think there's a very similar Saturday Night's main event where there's another. No, isn't it Bret Hart versus Randy Savage on that one? And
that was the next one.
Yeah, but isn't there also a Young Stallions versus?
Yeah, Young Stallions versus the Hart Foundation is the main event.
Oh, okay. I'm conflating a couple different shows. Then I'm mixing them up in my head. I know what I'm mixing up. Hogan Andre on the main event. Wasn't there a tag team match where we didn't get the finish because they ran out of time?
Yes. Yeah. Wasn't it what was on the main event? Let me fire that up real quick. There was definitely a Hart Foundation versus something and they ran out of Strike Force.
Yeah. Hart Foundation, Strike Force. Yeah, and we didn't get the finish. That's what I was mixing up. Yeah, but Hogan and Sika, that would have been in the heart of 1987. But I still think that tag match against Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas might be his most well-known match. And it's funny because I was saying that the Wild Samoans, Rocky Johnson, Tony Atlas, that era of guys in like 83 and early 84. It's like the roster turned over right when the Hulkamania era started, and all those guys were gone. You ever notice that? Like the Wild Samoans didn't last into the Hulkamania era, and Rocky Johnson didn't last into that era. No matter what Young Rock will tell you, Tony Atlas didn't really last into that era. Those guys just kind of like Vince turned over a lot of that crew before he really went full throttle. Going national in late 84 and then 85. It wasn't was very much a different crew by the time that happened, and the Wild Samoans were part of that purge. But then, like we're saying, Sika came back in '86, and I think he was in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 4. Wasn't really pushed, at all on the back end of his run, and he stuck around like through, into 1988. But then, that was it for him. And then in '88, and this is he went to Continental with Kokina, with Yokozuna, who and they were the I don't know if they were billed as the Wild Samoans or the New Samoans. I don't remember what they were billed as necessarily, but that was the Eddie Gilbert booked period of Continental, where he had Paul Heyman as his assistant booker and Missy Hyatt down there helping him out. And he brought in Sika and Kokina, and he gave him that manager whose name escapes me. He was like a job guy who couldn't wrestle, but he could talk. And Gilbert liked him because he could talk. I'm going to think of it. It's definitely going to come to me because I just studied all this stuff when I did the Gilbert doc. Alan Martin was the guy's name. He was the manager of Sika and Kokina in Continental. And I think that they probably won those tag team titles. Let me see if maybe they didn't. It's not listed on.
It doesn't show for Kokina. Yeah, I looked at Yoko's run and nothing shows it there.
But yeah, so that so Eddie Gilbert booked him in Continental with young Kokina, who obviously would go on to become Yokozuna. And after that, I mean, that's pretty much it for Sika. He may have done indie shots and stuff after that, but that little Continental run where they were managed by Alan Martin, who is a name forgotten in history, was probably the last high profile run of his career. And then, of course, they ran the wrestling school in Pennsylvania where they trained hundreds of wrestlers, including, their entire extended family and everything. And then I guess there was that famous story at the WrestleMania was it the Bay Area WrestleMania where Roman lost and Sika and the rest of the Samoans were irate because they thought that was going to be his crowning moment. Do you remember that story?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Yeah, that they invited everybody there and everybody thought it was going to be. It was which one was that? I forget which Mania that was. You're probably right. It probably was. Well, what happened in? So wasn't that was the one where Rollins cashed in. Yeah, that was in Santa Clara. Yeah. That was in Santa Clara for sure.
Yeah, that was the one where Seth cashed in, and I think that the family, they weren't smartened up to the finish, and they thought that Roman was going to get his big moment there at the hometown WrestleMania, and he didn't. And wasn't that a big thing where like Atha and Sika like threatened Vince, and they wanted to like kick his ass because they
should have done it. They should have whooped his ass. They should have.
I mean, they were old men, old frail men by then.
You kidding? That guy. You're gonna cry? I wouldn't cross that dude on his deathbed. 79, he could still whoop my ass. You kidding me? Have you seen Sika?
I mean, I wouldn't fuck with any of those guys at any age. You're right.
No.
But I mean, that was kind of the deal with that. I remember that being like a controversy.
I do remember that too. Yeah. Let me see if I can find a story about that. WrestleMania. It was the one with the play button. I don't remember what number it was though. All right, so here, several members of the legendary NOI family were very angry at the finish of WrestleMania 31 as plans were changed and Roman Reigns did not end up winning the title. Reigns' father, WWE legend Sika, was said to be, quote, looking to start a war. It was so upset. One WWE source commented to the Wrestling Observer, quote, Sika forgot this business is not real life and was legit pissed at the finish and looking to start a war. A lot of the younger family members were rallying around Sika, but the other 45 or 50 of them talked some reason into him.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
You know what they should have done? All 50 of them should have said, fuck this guy and beat his ass. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, so look, if you're looking for match recommendations, they weren't those kind of wrestlers.
Nah, just
the Wild Samoans.
Just type them into YouTube or whatever. Hey, our very own Griffin Peltier, I think, just uploaded a the Wild Samoans in WWF like compilation video. If you really want to find that, I can. It shouldn't be too hard to find. I just posted that a couple of hours or earlier in the week. If you want to go, it's just type in Sika, type in Wild Samoans, watch a couple matches. I think you'll get the vibe. It's not. Yeah,
is he in the chat? I wonder, did he get that Rocky Johnson Tony Atlas title change?
I don't know. Yeah, he is in the chat.
He is in the chat.
He'll
answer.
Chat, so
he'll when he hears this in a couple seconds, he'll answer. But because that's okay. No, he didn't get the title change, he said. But I know that match is on tape and out there because I've seen the finish no less than like 100 times over the years, especially when I was a kid. They love to play that finish. They love to talk about that finish in the aftermags, that title change and everything. And obviously his Saturday night's main event match with Hogan, which again is a nothing match, the match against Sika. You're not going to be throwing stars at it and opening up your notebook, to retroactively, mark that one down in your 1987 section of your Voices of Wrestling, the notebook. But, for historical reasons, it's good to watch all this stuff. And, and obviously, multi-time, not just WWF tag team champion, but everywhere the Wild Samoans went, they basically won the tag team titles.
Yeah. Their tag team title page on Cage Match, I fired it up a little bit earlier and wrote it down. It is IWA World Tag Team Champions, NWA Gulf Coast Tag Team Champions, NWA National Tag Team Champions, NWA Southeastern Tag Team Champions, NWA Vancouver Canadian Tag Team Champions, NWA World Tag Team Champions twice, Stampede Champions twice, UWF twice, World Tag Team titles 3 times, and then the WWC as well, because they also were in Puerto Rico for some certain times as well. So yeah, just a ton of reigns and pretty long, a lot of long ones too.
So that would have been Vancouver All-Star, like the Gene Kiniski promotion, right?
I believe NWA
that would have been
Vancouver,
right. That probably would have been around the time they were with Stampede. I'm sure they were bouncing back and forth from Stampede to working for Kiniski. I just wrote about Kiniski a lot because that's where Iron Mike Sharp, Gene Kiniski was Iron Mike Sharp's mentor. And I wrote about Iron Mike Sharp behind the paywall for Match of the Week. And Iron Mike Sharp, basically, he stole that. He not stole, because it was his mentor. But he took the Canada's Greatest Athlete gimmick from Gene Kiniski, which was a gimmick that he held all.
And the high-waisted tights too. Those tights were pretty high on both those men.
High-waisted. But that he held that gimmick through all those years as a TV jobber. He would be announced by my memory today is awful. The famous WWE ring announcer, Howard Finkel. Canada's Greatest Athlete, Iron Mike Sharp. And he, even though he was a jobber, he held that moniker, which he got from Gene Kiniski and breaking in Vancouver with Gene Kiniski. Gene Kiniski took Iron Mike Sharp to Japan as his tag team partner and pin eater, and then that was Iron Mike Sharp's first break in Japan. And then I think with All Japan, and then he went back later to New Japan with Hulk Hogan and was Hulk Hogan's pin eater on a couple of tours as Hulk Hogan's tag team partner. I think in '84, right when Sharp was being, because Sharp came in as a pushed guy with WWF and got some early title shots and those sorts of things. But he was quickly downcycled into a prelim wrestler and then eventually a television jobber. But instead of leaving the territory, he just stayed. He stayed for like a decade because to him, it was just solid work. It's like he would go on the road. He would always work the prelims, but he would go on the road. He'd work every TV taping. So, he in '84 he went back to Japan with Hogan on a couple of New Japan tours as Hogan's pin eater. But that's what made me think of that was Gene Kiniski because and the Wild Samoans, it would make sense that they would work there. But you're looking at the timeline, probably right around the time they worked Stampede, right? Probably the same time period.
Let's see here. Yeah, let me fire this up real quick. Probably won't be hard to find. WA, what did I say? Vancouver and Vancouver
hold on,
All-Star Wrestling. Yeah, we're looking at like 73, 74, and 76.
Yeah.
For that, and they were in Stampede in 73, mostly in Stampede.
Yeah, so that would have been the same time period when they were, breaking in up in Canada for those first few years. I'm sure they did Portland, because if you work those territories, you worked all those territories, and then before they made their way down. And again, their most famous run was the WWF run. And I would say the Mid-South run.
Mid-South run is
their second famous run.
And there's a lot of that out there too. If you're trying to watch any of the Wild Samoans, a lot of the Mid-South run is available on YouTube, which is nice. Obviously, WWF, due to copyright issues, it's hard to find a lot of their stuff, and it's probably pretty tough to find a lot of the older stuff on Peacock. But a lot of the Mid-South matches are available. So if you do want to watch those, they're very plentiful. I was able to watch a bunch of those, including the aforementioned Iron Mike Sharp. It was Iron Mike Sharp and a brunette Buddy Landell versus the Wild Samoans earlier that I never knew. Yeah, I never knew Buddy Landell had brown hair at any point. I just always remember him as the blonde-haired Buddy Landell or whatever. And they're like, Iron Mike. I know Iron Mike Sharp from a million miles away. I'm like, yeah, that's Iron Mike Sharp for sure. Yeah. And I was like, who the fuck is that? And they're like, Buddy Landell. I'm like, what? Really? That doesn't look at all like Buddy
Landell. That's early Buddy.
Yeah,
Mike Sharp was pushed in Mid-South.
Yeah, he was.
Mike Sharp was a push, like he wasn't a top guy, but he, Mid-South would always have those, like state specific, like they'd have the Mississippi title and the Louisiana title, all these different like state titles, as their mid-card titles or undercard titles or whatever. And Mike Sharp was always in that mix. He was always, a pushed guy. Mike Sharp was never a top guy anywhere, but he was a pushed guy everywhere.
He was respected everywhere.
Yes, including WWF when he first got there. He was managed by, was it Blassie or Albano? I can't remember. Might have been Blassie. And he got some title shots against Bob Backlund. His Iron Mike Sharp's biggest match was the title shot against Bob Backlund in the Spectrum in 82, maybe 81, 82, somewhere in there. He had that title match against Backlund. I'm guessing it didn't draw because they never went back to it. We had some matches against Backlund on C shows, like, in high school gyms and like the smaller shows. He faced Backlund a few more times. And he also had matches for the Intercontinental title. But they never went back to Sharp in a big building against Backlund. The next time they came back to the Spectrum, he was already working like Sal Balomo and people at that level. So that tells me that it didn't draw. But when he came in, they did push him. And he had a manager, and he was pushed on TV, and he was immediately programmed with Backlund. But it didn't take them long to downcycle him at all. And he almost immediately became a prelim guy, and then almost immediately became just a straight-up TV jobber, and then stayed for another decade. Never left. He was there throughout the entire decade of the 80s. Well, again, as a guy who, even though he was a TV job guy, was very respected. And, because he knew what he was doing. And the other thing about Iron Mike Sharp is he was such a big guy that I think people liked beating him on TV because it looked impressive, especially if you were smaller than him, right? To be beating this big physical guy rather than beating some small, pasty, local jobber who doesn't look menacing. You're beating this big dude. Not only that, a guy who's billed as Canada's greatest athlete, a guy who older fans knew as someone who was a title challenger, so it's like
and he didn't look like a lot of the jobbers of that era had their big guts and their terrible hair or whatever. He looked, like he looked like a tough dude. He looked like a guy who could beat your ass.
He looked like a power lifter.
Yeah,
He wasn't cut. He didn't have like the steroid cut.
No, he had that early 80s strong thing where before the steroids really became very prevalent. That it was, the guy who just bench press. If you went to a gym, the guy's just fucking bench pressing the entire time and putting a big weight, and that's all he's doing. No cardio, no cut, doesn't really care about his diet all that much, but he's a strong motherfucker who could put up, a nice little bench press.
Yeah, barrel chested, he was a fitness freak. He would get to the buildings early and run the steps. He'd be the first guy to the building, running the steps. He had OCD. I don't know if it was classified as that at the time, but he'd be the first guy in the building. He'd be running the steps. He would compulsively wash his hands and compulsively shower. He would shower like 2-3 times a night. He'd constantly wash his hands. He'd shake your hand and go wash his hands. He'd touch something, go wash his hands. Today, he would be diagnosed, with OCD or something. But part of that for him was working out. He would just break into workout routines in the locker room. He'd just start doing sit-ups and push-ups. He'd run the steps. He was physically fit. But like you said, it was more like that old-timey barrel-chested kind of look.
That's what fit people look like when they're not on anabolic steroids, because it's really hard. Like, people look at the wrestlers that are on steroids and go, oh yeah, it's like you can't really achieve those bodies without a little bit of help. Iron Mike Sharp's a perfect example of a guy who kept himself in tip-top shape, worked out really well. And yeah, he had big muscles but yeah, he didn't do anabolic steroids, so he didn't look like, Ultimate Warrior or whatever.
Yeah, cut.
Rick Rude. Because to bulk and to cut at the same time, very difficult to do. Very difficult to do, unless you're
2% body fat, always dehydrated. That wasn't. He was a different kind of fit. He had like the Bruno Sammartino body.
Yeah, exactly. Hairy, but strong. You could tell. The man had a very nice handshake. You're sure of it.
Yeah, like when you look at George Hackenschmidt pictures, like that kind of that kind of physique. But it's funny how his path really, it kind of mirrored the Wild Samoans, like even from what territories they started in and where they ended up. It's kind of they kind of traveled very similar paths, starting in Western Canada and then working their way, going through Mid-South and being pushed in Mid-South and then ending up in WWF all around the same time periods too. So that's kind of funny that their paths crossed that way. But yeah, that's Sika, dead at the age of 79.
And real quickly, I know you touched on this a little bit on Flagship Plus over there again at flagshippatreon.com. $5 tier for the Flagship Plus episodes, by the way. If doing those at least once a week. Sometimes we'll get 2 a week in there most of the time. But yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff with the Flagship Plus. So make sure you get on that $5 tier. If not, but on most recent episode that you did, you touched briefly on the death of Jamie Kellner, who the timing, and I talked about this in my Death of WCW series that I'm doing, also on the $5 tier that now, Who Killed WCW, the Vice TV series now, has concluded with episode 4 that happened last week. But I have recaps of every single episode of that over there, again, at flagshippatreon.com. But I talked about it on that episode of the timing is just ridiculous. This guy could have died any year, any week, any day. Like any time this guy could have died at any, but he dies days before the final episode of Who Killed WCW airs. And he is a central figure in that episode as a guy who potentially killed it. You know what I mean? Like the timing of it is, if he died 5 weeks from now, we might be like, oh, wow, he died a little bit after. He literally dies days before the final episode of Who Killed WCW, the series on Vice. Just unbelievable how timing works out. But, he died at the age of 77. A very noteworthy run as a TV executive for Fox, pretty much helped create Fox, helped them launch a lot of the big time. And I touched on this a little bit on Flagship Plus, too. For people that weren't alive at the time and just know Fox as what it is today, when Fox first started, it was like the plucky upstart, kind of trashy broadcast channel that nobody really believed was even, like, why is this thing even here? Who cares? It's not NBC, ABC, or CBS. It's this rogue, other agent coming in here. And they started off by doing kind of, The Simpsons, which at the time was kind of laughed at and eyes were rolled about. Now, 37 seasons later, whatever the fuck they're on right now, no one's really laughing about The Simpsons. But at the time, it was like, all right, fine. Yeah, you can put a cartoon on primetime, see how that's going to work out for you guys. And then shows like Married with Children.
The Simpsons, not to cut you off, but that was a sketch from the Tracy Ullman show.
Yeah.
Was The Simpsons. And they just spun it off into its own show.
And considered kind of trashy television, like trashy lowbrow cartoons or whatever. And then Married with Children, again, another show that's, beloved at, these days, but at the time was thought of as a kind of trashy, kind of lowbrow stuff like that. And then they really hit it off with stuff like Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place and In Living Color. I love In Living Color, great sketch comedy show. And those sort of things start launching Fox into like a little bit of hey, they're getting a little bit of a buzz here. And then I talked about on the show too, the thing that really changes the game for Fox, they get the NFL. And if you weren't alive at the time and don't know and haven't read stuff, people were just, I don't know how to I don't know what I could liken it to in today's world. Maybe you can call it that.
I'll give you a good one. It'd be like if CBS or Fox today lost the Sunday afternoon NFL package to the CW. It's just preposterous.
Right, it was
but that's what
is the NFL doing? Why is the NFL on Fox? Why is Fox paying for this? The NFL is ruining themselves by going on to this trashy network, Fox. Fox doesn't know how to do sports. They're doing The Simpsons and Married, which it was like unbelievable that the NFL would take this risk or why they would do this or why Fox would do it. It was just people were stunned, could not believe that the NFL was going to be on Fox. And then now we know, the NFL is synonymous with Fox. I can't think of NFL not being on Fox, but there was a time when it was like, what the fuck is the NFL thinking going on to Fox? That's going to be death for them. It's going to kill them.
If you're under 40, basically, you're like, what do you mean it was bad for the NFL to go to? The NFL's been on Fox my whole life.
Right,
is
right.
What you're thinking, you know. but again, the perfect analogy would be if the next NFL contract came around and the CW swooped in and got the NFC package. It's preposterous to think that could happen, but it did happen. It did happen because they offered the most money. Money talks, and they brought everybody with them, including John Madden. And when we did the John Madden obituary, we did a whole, we probably did 20 minutes on Fox acquiring the NFL, because at the time that the NFC package was with CBS and the AFC was with NBC, and CBS had NFL rights from the moment they were on television. And for them to lose that NFC package, which was the more prestigious package and still is, but in those days especially, it was more prestigious than the AFC package, and the fact that it was on CBS all those years. And then it not only was leaving CBS, but going to this bullshit, like you're saying, trashy upstart network that nobody had any respect for. It was just fucking out of this world unbelievable. They thought it was a terrible move they thought the NFL were shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, NFL is growing in popularity, but it's all going to end because they're going to Fox, and no one's going to respect them, and no one's going to watch it on Fox. And now it's like, especially with all the innovations that Fox did to live sports, and coming in with a bunch of new things and new camera shots and score bugs, and like you said, bringing in Madden and bringing in Summerall and bringing in those guys, and keeping some of the old while also giving a lot of the new too. And yeah, they just completely transformed how sports were presented on television. Kellner, a part of that. He then creates the WB network, and that's, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and that sort of ilk of those sort of shows all kind of go to the WB network, and it becomes today what kind of the modern CW is, or what the CW was for the past couple of years. I think the WB actually kind of evolved eventually into CW, but, plays a big part in that, and then gets the job that everybody in the wrestling world knows him from. In March of 2001, he was put in charge of Turner Broadcasting. So he was in charge of the Turner television, and ultimately he makes the call to cancel WCW from the networks. Now, I talked about it at length in the Who Killed WCW episode, episode 4, which I just recapped last week. In the episode that they do on Vice, a couple of the people, blame Jamie Kellner. Oh, he just didn't like wrestling. He didn't want wrestling. He did this. And then when he passes away, because these same people kind of regurgitate this bullshit over and over and over again, you have people, and you talked about this on your Flagship Plus, people in the mention saying like, good riddance, he killed WCW, fuck that guy, and all this sort of bullshit. And it's just like, man, I really hope at this point we're getting a little bit better and a little bit more educated about this stuff, but clearly we are not. And Who Killed WCW, as talked about, is not going to really educate people anymore. But Jamie Kellner, canceling WCW from the networks there was a lot more involved in it than people think. And it wasn't simply that this guy showed up, said, I hate professional wrestling, get this shit off my network, and canceled it, and it was gone. Like, a lot of other stuff had to happen. I always liken Jamie Kellner, and I talked about this on the episode 4 that I did. The recap is blaming Jamie Kellner for killing WCW is like blaming the doctor that pronounces your grandfather dead. You're at the hospital. Everyone, the family's gathered around your grandfather. He's dying of lung cancer. He smoked his entire life. He smoked a carton of cigarettes every single day, drank, alcohol like crazy, didn't take care of his body at all, ate fast food every day or whatever. He's passing away, and you're all there. And, you walk in, the vitals all go, and the doctor says, I'm sorry to tell you, I have to pronounce your grandfather dead. An imbecile would say, that doctor killed my grandfather. God damn it. But, you're an imbecile. You're a fucking idiot. And that's essentially what blaming Jamie Kellner for killing WCW is he's the last guy who obviously says, all right, this is done and this is over, and basically tanks its value. He didn't kill it. He didn't kill it any more than the doctor killed your grandfather by pronouncing it dead. He was just pronouncing WCW once and for all dead on Turner Broadcast Systems. And there's a lot of other details that went into it, but I liked that you gave a little bit of time on your Flagship Plus to talk about how ridiculous it was that people were jumping on. And I shouldn't be surprised. It's fucking Twitter.
He canceled the TV shows.
Right.
Okay. He didn't kill the company. I mean, if you want to be technical, because I see people saying, oh, well, technically he killed WCW because, well, he didn't. He canceled the TV shows, and then the company was sold.
Right. He reduced its value to very, very little.
Right, for sure. But it was still sold after that. And if you really want to be technical about who pulled the plug, it was Vince McMahon, because he bought it He owned it. He had every intention of keeping it alive. And then after the Buff Bagwell Booker T match flopped so hard in Tacoma, Washington, he lost interest because his plan was to give Monday nights to the WCW show, as crazy as this sounds today, and keep SmackDown as the WWF show, or the WWE show. Was it F or E at that point?
They were still F. They were still F at that time.
It was F. But Vince lost interest and he pivoted. And then they just, they went in a different direction with the whole invasion and, wrapped it up in a matter of months. And then he, if you really want to be technical, put the final nail in the coffin and killed it. But neither one of those people are the answer to the television show's question. It wasn't Jamie Kellner canceling. That was a wise business decision, a wise television decision on his part.
Oh God,
to
yes.
cancel.
Yeah,
to cancel the television.
And David Bixenspan did a great job on his Substack this week, Babyface v Heel. On Substack, if you want to read, and that's something that, and Dave kind of alluded to it a little bit as well, and it's been out there. It was in the Nitro book as well. One of the big things that happened too when Jamie Kellner takes over in March of 2001 is he looks at this contract that Fusion Media and Warner had agreed to, and the contract said that Fusion Media would have rights to 4 hours or whatever of primetime television on Turner, whether it be Mondays and Tuesdays, Mondays and Wednesdays, whatever it may be, that they had, even if WCW went out of business or whatever, Fusion Media still had the rights to, for a couple of years or whatever it was, 4 or 5 years or whatever, to the primetime television slots on Turner Networks. And Jamie Kellner, a smart man, looks at that and goes, wait, no, why are we going to let another company have the rights to 4 hours of our primetime television? No. Even if he didn't care about WCW, just the very idea that this random company owns 4 hours of our television, primetime television, even if he divorced it completely from wrestling, that's a terrible deal. And if you're the head of Turner, you would look at this deal that hasn't been finalized and say, no, why would we do this? We're not doing this. We could put something we own in those time slots and not have to, we know what it's going to be and program it ourselves. He was giving rights to Fusion to program it however they wanted. Ideally, in the contract, it was supposed to be for WCW, but there's no guarantee that WCW was going to last 4, 5, 6 years. There's no guarantee it was going to last 6 months or whatever. So looks at that and says, no, what are we doing here? Get the hell out of here. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. We're out. So, and then Fusion Media as well. One of the other things that a lot of people don't bring up and was certainly not brought up in the, Who Killed WCW is Fusion was getting a little bit of cold feet as well as they started to look through the WCW books and went, oh my God, this thing's a fucking disaster. This thing's losing shit tons of money. What are we doing here? So it's all that. If they weren't losing money and were unpopular, Jamie Kellner's probably not very apt to try to get rid of them. But also, yeah, that deal to have it be guaranteed with a time slot on Turner Networks, that'd be absolutely ridiculous for a new person to come in and say, yeah, that sounds great. Let's give up 4 hours of our primetime television to these other dudes that we know nothing about. There's no reason to do that.
You're essentially blaming the executioner in that situation.
Right.
Like your analogy was the doctor pulling the plug or whatever. It's and look, this was such a small part of Jamie Kellner's career. I'm sure to Jamie Kellner, canceling these 2 television shows, was like the 57th most memorable thing or most significant thing that he ever did in his career. This was just another decision for him. Whereas his name is embedded in the brains of a wrestling fan of a certain age as like, public enemy number one. And I thought that, some of the replies to some of the tweets I saw were just disgusting. Places like mainstream places like Variety and Twitter accounts of trade publications announcing this man's death, who had worked in TV all these years, and just being invaded by wrestling fans, saying good riddance or like, gifs of like people pissing on graves. And it's like, it just makes you sick. Like wrestling fans deserve nothing. I mean, it's just a terrible group of people. I mean, with the exception of our listeners, of
yes,
course. All
yes.
fine,
you guys are all
people.
Good. You guys are all good. But yeah,
in
other,
general,
yeah.
these wrestling fans, I mean, it's gross, Rich. I mean, it's like, and I just think about, it's a small thing, but like his friends and family may be seeing that shit, as oh, okay, they're announcing the death of my uncle here. Let me see what people have to say about it. And it's a bunch of wrestling fans, acting like subhuman morons, and it's gross, and it really bothered me. It bothered me to see that, but yeah, I don't know. I guess you did the shows. You did the live show the other day after episode 4. I didn't watch Who Killed WCW. I just, by Eric Bischoff's tone in the lead up, I had a feeling it was going to be an Eric Bischoff reclamation project, and I have no fucking time for that. I have no respect for Eric Bischoff. Our listeners know that. I think with the exception of Hulk Hogan, with the one and only exception of Hulk Hogan, I think Eric Bischoff is more full of shit and a bigger fraud than anybody in the pro wrestling business. And think about the ground that covers.
That's a lot of ground. That's a lot of ground.
And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe he is the biggest fraud and the most fraudulent person and the person who is the most full of shit in pro wrestling, with the exception of Hulk Hogan. I don't respect him from that standpoint. I'm sure in his personal life, he's a nice guy to him and his fan, but that, he doesn't respect pro wrestling. He doesn't respect pro wrestling fans. And I also believe that Eric Bischoff is one of the most damaging people to current pro wrestling. His presence is damaging to pro wrestling today. So I was in no mood to watch that, that 4-part deal when I saw the way Eric Bischoff was set. I just had a feeling. I had a bad feeling. And then we saw that interview with Evan Husney with John Pollock the other day, where he basically said that Bischoff's a hero of his, and he didn't want to have real journalists or reporters on the documentary series because he felt they would be biased. Forget it. I'm glad that you watched it, and I'm glad that you covered it, and I'm glad that I didn't have to, because that interview with Husney, I mean, just made me sick. I mean, to suggest that reporters, you don't want to have Wade Keller and Dave Meltzer and maybe even Brian Alvarez, who literally wrote the fucking book based on Meltzer's work.
The guy that's interviewing you, John Pollock. Bring him on there. I was literally interviewing you. Yeah.
With the idea that they're going to be biased, and Pollock sits back and lets them say that with no pushback. I had a problem with that too. I don't have any problem with Pollock, and maybe he just didn't want to, go down that road. But I mean, come on, stand up for the reporters, man. You are one of them, and you're someone who does know. So this was just, and I saw Meltzer say something similar. I haven't listened to his audio, but he said he didn't use my reclamation project. He called it an Eric Bischoff.
He called it rehab.
He called it a rehab project, which is basically the same thing.
Same stuff. Same words, basically.
And I listened to your shows, and I've seen you talk about it, and it sure seems like, that's what it was. And whether you blame Eric Bischoff for the death of WCW or not, and your mileage may vary on how much responsibility that he bears for that. I think he bears a lot of responsibility. It still, I don't like a project that's going to whitewash his responsibility and make it seem like, and I understand, as you laid out, he copped to some things, but look, I don't like the guy. I don't trust the guy. I don't have any respect for the guy. I think he's damaging to pro wrestling overall. And it wasn't, I'm just glad that you were interested enough in it to cover it, because it needed to be covered. And I had no fucking interest in watching it. It would have made me sick. It just would have made me upset. So I thought you did a great job. I think our listeners enjoyed the work you put into it. But I mean, overall, what were your thoughts of it overall as a total package?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I would say, and it's kind of something that was pervasive throughout the entire series, is it needed an actual voice to jump in when people were lying. They allowed professional bullshitters to bullshit, without any, a guy could say something and we would know it's not true, but we wouldn't get anybody saying, that's not true. It's not actually how it happened. It's not actually what it was. We have the numbers, we have the data, we have that sort of stuff. And that's where it really hurt. And I started to notice it throughout episode 2, that, okay, we're not really going to check anybody on these things. And then episode 3, I thought, was an absolute disaster of an episode, like one of the worst, because it was the Vince Russo episode. So essentially, they just let Vince Russo stand up there and say stuff for like an hour and talked about 2000 WCW, and Russo could just say, bro, the ratings, bro, we had the ratings going, they were high, I was here and they were high, we made them high, I helped the ratings out so much. I was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. I look at the numbers.
Maybe if Husney would have had some reporters on this thing, that's the balance.
Exactly, and that would have been just okay. If you can have Vince Russo professionally bullshit in front of you and say, bro, you look at the numbers were up, man, we were making the numbers better, we were helping the show, and then smash cut to Wade Keller saying, well, actually, the numbers were really not much. And you also have to account for the fact that he cut off the third hour, so the revenue also went down. But it was like unchecked, and it was completely. And one of the problems that I had throughout a lot of the episodes too was we never really talked about the business. It was all the creative. Oh yeah, the creative was this and the creative was that, and anytime we talked about the business, it was the Turner executives were moving money, back and forth. So it's like, they put us in a bad spot or whatever, and not about we're producing the show that once was getting people to buy tickets and buy pay-per-views and buy merchandise and watch on TV, and now because of us being complete boobs. And a lot of this goes on Kevin Nash and Eric Bischoff in the spring of 1999, which I always bring up was the most disastrous period in WCW history, but it always gets whitewashed, and they always like to point to Russo and, look at that guy. It was way worse than us. Talk about that guy. But what you did in essentially, 6 to 8 months under the leadership of Eric Bischoff and Kevin Nash is you made it a product that people didn't want to buy tickets to, didn't buy merchandise for, didn't buy pay-per-views for, and didn't watch on TV. And that's really where it comes down to. But a lot of it was, let's talk about the juicy, the creative, or the guys, or the boys in the back, and the Turner executives, and it was a lot of that stuff that, again, I think if you had a Wade Keller, a Dave Meltzer, a Brandon Thurston, David Bixenspan, a John Pollock, whoever it may be, coming in and saying, well, actually, the pay-per-view buys were going down like crazy, their live attendance was plummeting, all that sort of stuff was plummeting, and it wasn't simply just that, Turner decided to put, $2 million of losses for one division under the pocket of WCW, and then that's why they went out of business or whatever. And that, to me, was one of the biggest things is that I think all of it would have been helpful. I think it's okay to have these guys professionally lie because they're fucking wrestlers. Of course they're going to do that. But without them being checked on any of it, it was like, okay, we're just going to let these guys bullshit you, and we're not going to check them on it. And that hurt. I think that's what really hurt this series more than anything. And I was hoping we were going to have that. I was hoping there was going to be a little bit more of that. And episode 1 gave me hope that there was going to be a little more of that. And it just never happened. The guys just said shit, and we just said, okay, and just moved on. And I talked about it in my episode 4, it'd be like a Willie Mays documentary and some random old player saying, yeah, Willie Mays was amazing. He hit 900 home runs. And we just move on. You know what I mean? We just go with the idea that Willie Mays hit 900 home runs. And it's like, no, he didn't. He didn't hit 900 home runs. And you're lessening the accomplishment of Willie Mays by just lying about it. But that would be, some old ball player, Johnny Bench. They interviewed Johnny Bench for this, Willie Mays documentary. He goes, one of the best hitters I've ever seen. I can't believe he hit 900 home runs. No one will ever hit 900 home runs. And then we move on, and it's like, well, no, you're going to not put that in the fucking piece because you're like, Johnny, he didn't hit 900 home runs. That's not the number. It's not even close. But in this show, it was okay to just fucking lie to people's faces, and then we just moved on with it. So that really bothered me, and I tried to do my best in the series and in the 4 episodes that I did recapping it to let you know what the real facts were in every single thing. But there was so many of them that I couldn't really do it. It would take hours to fact check this entire thing, but that really was what hurt the series more than anything. Is we just didn't. I just didn't think there was any fact checking, and these guys were able to lie. And trust me, there was so many fucking liars in there. You have Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo and Kevin Nash and these sort of guys that just are perpetual liars. So that really hurt it a ton.
The bottom line for me is if you're going to do this type of project and you don't invite Dave Meltzer, you've already lost me. Nobody knows more about this topic inside and out, unbiased and with the facts, than Dave Meltzer. And you don't invite Dave. I don't have any interest in what you're doing, especially when the one person you do choose to include is the person who co-wrote Eric Bischoff's biography.
Right.
Are you fucking kidding me? This was straight up.
And that's the guy that Evan said on audio was unbiased. I wanted an unbiased guy in there, so I brought in Guy Evans, the guy who co-authored Eric Bischoff's biography.
I didn't want reporters. I brought in Guy Evans to basically be the unbiased voice. This guy co-wrote Bischoff's biography. I mean, so this is utter nonsense. To me, it's a 4-part piece of trash. I don't need to watch it now.
No,
because now I know
I would not.
What it was
I would not
to
recommend
be.
Anybody watch it. If you haven't watched it, I would not recommend it.
I think it's shameful that Husney approached it that way. It's Eric Bischoff propaganda. And, there's a conspiracy theory now saying that, The Rock was behind this. $7 Productions. The Rock is on the TKO board. Who is the most outspoken critic of AEW currently in wrestling media? It's Eric Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
So could there, the conspiracy theory says, is this an attempt to rehab Eric Bischoff and make him look like he's smarter than he really was, and none of this was his fault, and he's actually a very astute wrestling, and and then you rehab him, and then you see all the things he says about AEW, who are WWE's primary, quote unquote competition right now. And I'm not saying that there's not legs to that.
No, I mean,
I'm not saying there's not. I mean, it's that's the games that WWE plays.
He was the first voice we heard, and he was the last voice we heard on the show, and I talked about that as well. He was the first voice and the last
of him
voice.
sitting on the mountain with the sunsets as he says, I mean, come on, it's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. And I lost a lot of respect for Husney and all this. That interview with Pollock, I lost a lot of respect.
Yeah, I like those guys. I think they do good work, and I was very disappointed to hear him say that. He
wasn't interested in doing a fair
he said
documentary
facts,
on this.
and he used air quotes when he was talking about facts. Oh, I didn't want the guys to come in here with facts, but the idea that your Dave Meltzers and your Wade Kellers and those guys don't deal in facts. They deal in quote unquote facts. He straight up
said they would be biased. He used those words. He said they would be biased. The reporters would be biased, but the guy who wrote Bischoff's book won't be. That's your fact guy. Mm-hmm. Come on, man.
That's tough. That's a tough look.
This was a fanboy who liked WCW and liked Eric Bischoff and said it was his favorite promotion and said he looked up to Bischoff, and he did this to rehab Bischoff. I suspected it from the start, and after that interview, I'm convinced of it. It really is a shame. And now we know why he didn't want reporter, because you don't want the truth getting in the way of the narrative that you're pushing with this thing. So anyway, I sniffed that one out from the start, and I'm glad I had nothing to do with it. I won't watch a second of it. Quite honestly, I think I'm ready to just not bother with anything that guy does anymore, because that's how much this bothers me.
Yeah.
Because Eric Bischoff's a destructive force in pro wrestling today. And he doesn't care. He's selfish. It's just all about, whatever. It's all about running his grift. So, anyway, I don't want to get derailed. We got so much more to do.
No, we got a lot to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quickly here, we'll do these quick things and then we'll get to Forbidden Door. Donovan Dijak is a free agent. The former T-Bar is now free to work wherever he wants after this week. He tweeted this morning that his contract is expiring on the 28th. I wrote a piece behind the paywall a little bit about it's free though. I should not say behind the paywall because it is free to read. You just have to sign up for our Patreon, but you are free to read it over there at flagshippatreon.com. Just a little bit about his career, how he got to WWE. He's been there for 7 years. I couldn't believe it had been 7 years that Dijak had been there, but he was there for 7 years, and now he's free to go. And I don't know, what do you think of the different options for Dijak and free agency? I feel like this guy is tailor-made for the current state of TNA, and I kind of wrote that in the piece as well. Like, more so than any other place right now, I think TNA would be great for him. Obviously, the Indies are going to be, I think a lot. Your Beyonds, the Northeast, where he kind of came up, those guys are all going to call him. Your Deadlock Pros, I think those guys are going to call him. But if he's going to go to a kind of quote unquote major promotion, I think TNA is the best landing spot for him.
I think he's super talented, and he's like a legit 6'7", and I think they'd be foolish to not kick the tires on him. Now, do I have confidence that they'd get a lot out of him or book him? I don't have confidence in AEW period right now. So, I mean, that's, I think they're separate conversations that I guess it's fair for you to combine those conversations into one and say, hey, look, they've got 1 million guys on the roster. I don't see a path where he would become any kind of money drawing star for them. And so then why bother? I'm approaching it from when you got a guy that talented with that look and that size, you absolutely have to try to bring him on board. But do I have confidence that they would get anything out of him? No, I do not. I've never had less confidence in AEW getting anything out of anyone. I mean, they've turned Kazuchika Okada into Ron Simmons. So if you could do that to Kazuchika Okada and turn him into a one-note joke where he just says a catchphrase, and then why would I think that you can get anything out of Donovan Dijak? So I think any promoter in the world should be interested in bringing him in, and I have no confidence that if he ends up with AEW, they'll do anything worthwhile with him. How's that for an answer?
There you go. There's Dijak. So again, like I said, I wrote something there on the flagshippatreon.com. You can go read it for free if you'd like. Ricky Starks, quick update on him. Ton of different stories came out this week.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, all over the place.
Well, not a ton of different stories. A Reddit post
Yeah.
From a Reddit account that has existed for 8 years and had like one post ever. Okay. Basically puts up a post with assorted fairy tales, and people run with it, and it ends up becoming a story. And that's kind of the state of media and the state of wrestling today. I can't really blame wrestling media for this one. It's just, if this were a baseball player or an NBA player and there was a random Reddit post like this with a bunch of nonsense, it would largely get ignored. You know what I mean? It would pick up a little bit of steam, maybe with the specific team or something, and maybe deep in the weeds of the fans of a particular team. But Rich, it wouldn't become the story of the day in that sport. Do you know what I mean when I say that? It would just be something that people would quickly disregard as a bunch of nonsense.
Your trash accounts would pick up on it, but your Woj's and your Windhorse or whatever would just ignore it completely.
Correct. And I'm not blaming Sean Ross Sapp or Fightful for following up. I'm not blaming Dave Meltzer, who surely is going to write about it this Thursday. And look, we're talking about it because the state of wrestling is wrestling fans will take any kernel of unverified nonsense and just run with it. So unfortunately, it then has to be addressed. And honestly, I thought Sean did a really good job in his report based on a lot of the things that I know about Ricky Starks and the situation. But I've got some stuff that I could add. But the look, I don't even know where to start. First of all, the idea that he got into a bar fight in Calgary and got arrested, or as the Reddit post said, taken away in a police car, which may or may not necessarily mean arrested. Here's the bottom line. Ricky Starks was not taken away by police or put in a police car or arrested or any of the above in Calgary that night. Just didn't happen. It's a total fabrication. Okay? Sean Ross Sapp asked a bunch of people, and nobody said they heard anything about a story like that. People that were there that night. I asked a bunch of people, and everybody said they never heard anything like that. I asked someone who was as close to the story as a person can be, if you're picking up what I'm laying down. And it was just completely laughed off. Like it was completely preposterous, and it did not happen. And here's the thing about the Reddit post, okay? If people would just use their fucking brains, all right? As soon as that post went up, I mean, Sean said he contacted the Calgary Police Department and the local authorities and came up with nothing. I'm sure every other reporter has done the same. It would be public record. Not only that, if the guy were arrested in Canada, there's a decent chance he wouldn't be allowed back. He wrestled in Canada after this alleged incident. The match against Top Flight was in Canada. So if he got in a fight in Canada and got arrested in Canada, there's a good chance he wouldn't be allowed in Canada, but he was allowed back. Okay? So right there, I mean, just again, use your heads, and it would be public, and by now it would come out. So if everybody's going to lie to cover this thing up, it's a bad lie. It's a bad lie because eventually somebody would find an arrest record or something. So no, it's a total fabrication. It was just, it's just total nonsense. And then the post implied that he was actually still injured from the Top Flight match where he called the audible and asked to be pinned because he had the stinger or whatever it was. And the post was implying that he is actually still injured, but constantly saying he's healthy and ready to go so that it puts the heat on the company for not booking him.
Right. Where is Ricky Starks? Why are you not using Ricky Starks? Why are you not? Yeah. Right.
Right. And the post was saying, oh, well, he's not cleared, but he's saying he's cleared. That way the company looks bad for not booking him, even though they can't book him. But again, if you just use your head, you don't need Sean Ross Sapp or Joe Lanza. He has worked indie shots since then. He worked the match against QT Marshall in California after the Top Flight match. Okay? He's done physical things on wrestling shows since the Top Flight match. I told everyone on the Thursday TV review the very next day, I talked to Ricky Starks that night, spoke to him because I checked in on him to see if he was all right. And he said, yeah, I'm fine. It turns out I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. That was the night of the match. The guy's been fine for months. He's not injured and pretending he's healthy to play games with AEW. And again, he's worked a match since then. It doesn't make any sense. But again, all it takes is some unverified nonsense on Reddit of all places, and people will believe anything. It's incredible. And then the stuff about turning down creative, and the one story that's out there about the breaking up the tag team of Big Bill, and Starks pulling that doesn't work for me, brother. Okay. Let me explain something to people. Okay. There are ideas and pitches made in pro wrestling to every wrestler in these major companies every single day. And every single day, there are pro wrestlers who do not like those ideas and are opposed to the ideas. There's nothing new. It happens all the time. Ricky Starks does not have the power to turn down creative. No one in AEW does unless you're a tippy top guy. If you're MJF, you've probably got the power to turn down some creative and say you're not going to do something. If you're the Young Bucks, or, I'm talking top guys, Ricky Starks doesn't have that power to turn down creative and say he's not going to do it. And if his boss wanted him to do it and told him to come to work and do it, he would do it. I know that for a fact, because someone as close to the situation as possible has told me that was. Now listen, here's the thing with the breakup of the tag team. Okay? Starks never wanted to be in the tag team to begin with. So he didn't have any problem with the tag team ending. He was all for that. What he didn't like was having a feud with Big Bill coming out of the breakup of the tag team. He didn't like that idea. And the reason he didn't like that is he felt like it wouldn't be good for either guy, because he would go over Bill, and he didn't want to go over Bill. He didn't want to beat Bill. He likes Bill. He has a lot of respect for Bill. He likes everything that Bill has gone through. Everyone knows Bill's story. He never knew Bill when they put that tag team together. Those two guys didn't know each other. Okay? They got to know each other as a tag team. And they made the story of their tag team, they decided to lean into that. No tag team name, no matching gear. In their promos, they would do all this cute shit like they didn't know each other.
Right.
That was kind of like the whole, they decided, okay, we don't know each other. We're being put in this tag team that both of us are just shrugging our shoulders and saying, okay, I guess we're in a tag team now. So let's make that our gimmick. Our gimmick can be that we just don't really know each other. And we're the rare tag team that aren't friends and don't have good chemistry. We're just together. Right? So he didn't want to do the tropey breakup angle because he felt like he just did that with Hobbs. And he's like, I don't want to do another tag team breaks up and we feud. And I don't want to beat Bill. I don't think that does anything for Bill, because he would have went over in the feud. And it's not something I want to do. But he didn't tell them no and hang up a phone and then refuse to come to work. He just expressed that he didn't like the idea. And that shit happens every day. That's not news. It's not news. Anytime that Ricky Starks has been asked to come to work since he lost the top flight, he's come to work. They're not calling him. They called him to come in the day they took the physical. He came in. He took the physical. They didn't have anything for him. He visited with people. He hung around. He went home. He freely admits he didn't like the idea behind the breakup of the tag team, but he was okay with no longer being in the tag team because he didn't want to be in the tag team to begin with. The idea he came up with was the tag team just parts ways amicably, with the story of, hey, we never wanted to be together anyway. We don't have the titles anymore. And, they laid out this whole thing where they would basically just say, all right, we're going to go our separate ways. And then the big joke was going to be that they would leave the scene walking the same way. And then go, oh, wait, one of us has to go to, it was good. They were going to continue the bit of, we don't even really know each other.
Right. We're not really on the same page. We're not really, two peas in a pod
exactly.
Here. We're kind of just two separate dudes doing this thing for right now.
Yes, because and then he felt like just doing their own things after that and not feuding with each other would be a unique way to break up the team and not copy what they just did with Hobbs. But it's not like he told his boss, I'm not doing it. He just expressed that he didn't like the idea of feud. Here's the thing about Ricky Starks and everybody in that company. People do things they don't want to do all the time. people, there's idea. Starks has done a ton of shit that he wasn't thrilled about and didn't want to do. But and expressed, hey, look, I don't like this, and I could run them down for you, but I'm not going to do that. Where you say, hey, look, I don't think this is good for me. I don't think this is good for the company. But if this is what you want, I'll do it. And then they did, and then they did it, and then he did it, and he would do this too. But they decided not to do it. They decided to go a different direction with Bill with the learning tree. But if they would have said, no, we're doing this, come to work, we're doing the split up, you guys are having a feud, he would have went to work and had the feud. So this idea that it's like this whole, this doesn't work for me, brother, I'm not coming to work, it's just a bunch of nonsense. It just isn't true. Along with all these other things where, you know, phone calls with pitches and hanging up on people. Are you kidding me? That's not, it's all, that entire post was a work of fiction. And the problem is, because of the nature of pro wrestling, it's like, we have to address this stuff for some reason, right. Where in any other, we wouldn't be. If this was a television show and there was a cranky actor and it was just some random Reddit post, it wouldn't get any play, not in places that matter. But for some reason in wrestling, we will give oxygen to anyone. Rich, I can create a Reddit post tonight and just go write a bunch of fan fiction about fucking Anna J. Pick a name out of a hat. And that shit will get picked up on, and people will be talking about it the next day, and it'll be wasting Sean Ross Sapp's time as he goes and does fucking journalism to try to figure out if it's true or not. You know, and I think it's time that we just stop paying attention to this stuff, but we can't, and I don't know why. Do you think what's the reason that virtually anything in wrestling will get picked up on and become a story, even if it's just from a completely nonsensical, anonymous, unsourced.
I think it's probably
how does this happen?
Again, it's the lack of real news, I think, and the salacious stuff fills that void. So I think that helps it out a little bit, where it gives it more oxygen. If there was more legit news coming from people, if there was more legit news coming from wrestling companies, and we were able to report this stuff like adults, then this little salacious stuff wouldn't. You know, it wouldn't be, because like we said, you know, a Woj and Windhorse and stuff wouldn't cover this sort of stuff in the NBA. But if you were getting no information from the teams and no legit, then this little dumb salacious stuff would be all you get, because you get these little crumbs dropped. And I think that's probably more of what it is than anything is the fact that we're just so starved and crazed for any sort of news that, within the absence of real hard news coming from these companies and coming from real reporters, we'll just take anything. And a well written Reddit post is enough for us to go, okay, great, let's run with this.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just odd to me, but that's the nature of wrestling, and it'll happen again.
Oh yeah.
And and now, here's the downside of stuff like this. You have fans now who are convinced that this man has a alcohol problem.
Oh, it'll go. Yeah, this will stick with him now forever. Yeah, it'll stick with him for a while.
It'll stick with him forever. Because the post was implying that because he has a drinking problem, he, and all this other such nonsense. And you see people on Twitter, oh yeah, well that explains everything. He's an alcoholic, so it's like, what the fuck? It's a Reddit post that got taken down from an account that had one post in 8 years. And you just, and people just take it at face value. And you would think that a lot of it being debunked by Sean Ross Sapp, being debunked here by me, everyone would then say, all right, obviously the entire thing is a load of shit. But it doesn't work that way. A lot of this stuff is going to stick with this person for their whole career from some of the dumber people among us, which unfortunately covers a lot of ground when it comes to pro wrestling fans. And a lot of it is, I guess, the secretive nature of pro wrestling has a lot to do with it, because in a lot of ways, the pro wrestling business does this to themselves because they're so secretive, right? And this is like a nasty byproduct of it, because if there was honest, open communication between pro wrestlers, pro wrestling promoters, and the pro wrestling media, and a more professional wrestling media in general, That's what I think would kill random fan fiction Reddit posts from picking up steam, because there'd be no room for that
exactly
in the community.
Yeah, there'd be enough news coming from the primary sources that it would, this dumb stuff would either be completely forgotten about or could be quickly debunked, because there'd be a line of communication too, and one reporter could send that to AEW and say, hey, is there any truth to this thing that's out here? It seems ridiculous that would even get to that point, but maybe one reporter would say, hey, have you seen this thing? Like, none of this is true, right? And that, the PR arm or whatever of that company could say, no, there's no truth to this whatsoever, and then we all move on.
That's it. And if that was the standard, if the standard was open communication in pro wrestling the way there is in every other sport, right? Then things like we saw the other day with this Reddit post wouldn't gain any traction whatsoever. It'd just be completely ignored. Because we would have had clarity and the truth on why Ricky Starks hasn't been on TV this whole time. So there'd be no room for all of the rest of this. I mean, if Ricky Starks got in trouble in Calgary way back at last year's Owen Hart tournament, okay, here's the other thing, again, where people just don't think. And, it said that, it was a big pain. It was a big, thorn in the side of Tony Khan, and it was a big pain in the ass for him. All right, well, why did he push him in the ensuing months in a top feud with CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and give him the tag team titles if this was such a terrible thing that happened in Calgary that caused Tony Khan all of these headaches? Why wasn't he punished? Not only why wasn't he punished, why was he pushed in top line feuds and given titles? And if the guy's such a menace that Tony Khan's tired of dealing with, then why does he allegedly keep making pitches to the guy to come back to TV that allegedly the guy is turning down and refusing to come in for? Even the BS doesn't line up. Even the BS is contradictory.
But here's the thing: who's debunking this? Is Ricky? Is AEW? Is Tony? That's another problem too.
That's what I mean. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy.
Because, even in this, it's like still guarded secrets, and somebody I talked to close to the situation, AEW said nothing about it. Ricky has said nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, instead we get Instagram posts or whatever. And I'm not getting mad at this is just the game. It's the game that he's in. It's the game he plays or whatever.
The reality of it.
But instead we get, kitschy little Instagram posts or whatever. And that's it. And AEW says, oh, we can't speak on that. And that's it, and we don't know.
Right. AEW won't speak officially to SAP, but he'll get not off the record, but he'll get what's the word I'm looking for? But he'll get comments from people as long as their names are kept out.
Right. Or we talked about this a couple weeks ago about no information ever about these people, like where the fuck Britt Baker is. Where the fuck Jamie Hayter is? What's her injury and when is she coming back? We don't get any of that. And today on the media call, somebody asked about Britt Baker, and he goes, "Yeah, Britt Baker's hurt." All right, I think that's the first we've heard. She just disappeared. She just went away, and then she's been gone for a year. And it's like, okay, Whereas if they just said, and I know that they don't, people will say, "Oh, respect the privacy and." In some cases, absolutely. In some cases, absolutely respect people's privacy. But it is not that hard to say Jamie Hayter has an injury and she's going to be out for 6 to 8 months. And then when 6 to 8 months come, somebody can follow up. It doesn't, from those 6 to 8 months, no one's going to ask. Everyone's going to say she's got an injury, she's rehabbing, whatever. But then when those 6 to 8 months are up, then you can say, hey, what's going on with Jamie Hayter? And then you, a responsible company, could say there was a setback in a recovery. It will be another, 2 months or whatever. And then we're good. But we don't do that. She just disappears.
See,
she just goes away.
This doesn't help either. Somebody asked Tony Khan straight up where Ricky Starks was, and Tony Khan gave the stock answer that he gives every time. Oh, I love Ricky. We would love to have Ricky back. Ricky's a big part of the company. Here's all the great angles Ricky did. I would love to have Ricky Starks be part.
That's shit.
That's Tony's stock answer, but you know what that also does? It throws Ricky Starks under the bus. Because here you have the booker, the owner, the guy that runs everything saying that he'd love to have the guy back. All right, well, where is he then? right? So then it puts the heat back on the wrestler. Because if the owner and the guy who runs everything is saying he'd love to have him back and he's not back, then that implies that it's the other guy that doesn't want to be back. And that's just using this situation as an example, but that stock answer that Tony always gives ends up putting the heat on the wrestler. Do you see what I'm saying?
Of course.
So it's all a mess instead of just giving some kind of an honest answer. You know, but there is no honesty and there is no open discourse. Tony, for whatever reason, and not just Tony, but everyone in wrestling, like he feels like he can't just tell that guy in the interview, oh, well, you know, we've had some ideas for Ricky, but, you know, we can't get everybody on the same page and, you know, hopefully, or whatever, something that's a real answer as opposed to some stock answer that just adds fuel to the fire.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then that's what gives room for some random Reddit post filled with a bunch of nonsense, with a bunch of bullshit from someone's group chat or something, probably. I don't know where it comes from. You know what I mean? And then that ends up having validity because we don't have that open discourse and we don't have open answers about any of these situations. Does anybody know where Miro is and why?
No.
So what happens?
Is he hurt? Is he?
I'm going to tell you what happens. We all assume that Miro's pulling that don't work for me, brother.
Right.
That's what everybody thinks. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but we don't know. But that's what everyone just assumes. And we're just one Reddit post away from doing all that all over again with him. And we all might be misreading that situation. My dog is freaking out. I got to go. Can you hear that?
No, I couldn't hear anything from her.
Well, let me go deal with the dog. I think we're done with this topic.
Yeah, for sure. We're done with that for sure. So yeah, take care of her, and I will get us fired up and ready to go for Forbidden Door coming up this Sunday. As we talked about at the top of the show, we are doing Instant Reaction Live Sunday immediately following the show. Make sure you get on that $10 tier. We go live immediately after, and it is always one of the most fun things we do here on this Patreon and as a team here with the Flagship. And the thing that's great about it too, chat room is going nuts. Everyone's in there. Always a very, very fun chat room. People discussing and arguing and arguing in good ways. It's not like no one's really out there throwing hands or whatever in our chat room, but it's always a very, very fun, very lively chat room after the pay-per-views. People talking about the show, people discussing the show. We do votes on the matches of the night and stuff like that. So a whole lot of fun. So definitely recommend you guys jump on there. $10 tier for Instant Reaction Live this Sunday, immediately following Forbidden Door. We go live about 10 minutes or so after the show ends. We watch the show, we recap it, we review it. We do it better than anybody else do. I firmly believe that. I listen to a lot of other post pay-per-view and post-show review podcasts and see how they do it and see what they attacked and what things they talked about. And I got to be honest, we blow them all out of the water. So yeah, it is what we go way more extensive than we probably need to, but that's what we do here. You get 2.5 hours of recap of the pay-per-view. We'll go into every single match and give you extensive details and extensive thoughts. Some people will just recap it, give you moves. Yeah, that was a good match. Yeah, I like that match too. And then move on. No, not us. We're going to extensive detail about each and every match, what we thought of it, the booking, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you can expect that yet again this Sunday for Forbidden Door, Instant Reaction Live, $10 tier, flagship patreon.com. So all right. So you are back. All right, let's do this.
Yeah, one last thing on Starks, the contract. Okay, so I know that's a big talking point too. He is currently under contract to AEW. I would describe it as the ball is very much still in the air. There's a whole range of outcomes, and any outcome is still possible. The idea that he's effectively finished with AEW is not true. There are scenarios where he will continue with AEW. I don't know the details of his contract. He would never tell me that, even if I asked him. I think I talked about that a couple weeks ago. He doesn't discuss his contract with anyone. If you see contract details on Ricky Starks anywhere out there, I can almost guarantee that they're bullshit, because he, without question, is not telling anyone that or discussing it with anyone. He feels it's a strategic advantage from a business standpoint to not discuss his contract details with anybody and not leak it to the media. That's his personal philosophy. There's other wrestlers who believe it's advantageous to leak it to the media. There's other wrestlers who have their agents go out there and say, hey, who leak that their clients' contracts are coming up, or leak the contract details. He believes the opposite. For whatever reason, he feels like it's a strategic advantage to keep that stuff close to the vest and not tell anyone anything. All I know is he's still under contract. But as far as all I could say is any outcome is possible. That's legitimately the case. He can, he might end up remaining with AEW. He might end up leaving AEW. He might end up remaining with AEW for another year. He might end up with AEW long term. All those outcomes are on the table right now in terms of what's going to happen with him moving forward. So I know that the Fightful report said they couldn't get any hard details on the contract. That speaks to exactly what I'm saying. If you read anything about his deal, it's false. And you're probably not reading anything about his deal because he doesn't talk about it. And AEW doesn't talk about anybody's contract. And even if they do, a reporter is going to try to verify that with the wrestler, and he's never going to verify it with anybody. So, I'm just saying, anybody that sees anything about his contract out there, it's definitely it's more than likely not true. The idea that he's moonwalking into NXT next week or whatever, not true. It's just the ball's in the air. It's very much a situation that's in flux with a lot of different possible outcomes, and that's as much as I could say about it. So.
All right, let's preview this Forbidden Door here. Coming up Sunday, obviously 0 Hour. We have 3 matches announced so far for the 0 Hour. Owen Hart Foundation 2024 Women's Tournament quarterfinal match: Saraya versus Mariah May. The Lucha Brothers and Mystico versus LIJ of Hiromu, Teton, and Yota Tsuji. And then Tam Nakano and Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander and Mobo Watanabe make up your 0 Hour. It's probably one of the most loaded pre-show / 0 hours they have ever had, and there might be a possibility of adding another match to that as well. So yeah, you're probably not going to want to skip the 0 Hour this week, or this month, I should say, for this AEW pay-per-view. That's a pretty loaded lineup there.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, complaining that Mystico is on the pre-show and that particular match is on the pre-show. From the standpoint of a fan, if you're planning on watching the pre-show anyway, what difference does it make? I'm a little confused by that. Whether that match is on the 0 Hour or the main show, you're still going to see the match, and they give their matches time on the pre-show. It's not like they do a bunch of 3-minute matches on their pre-shows. I could see from the standpoint of maybe CMLL saying, hey, you're putting our biggest star on the pre-show. That's disrespectful, but that's kind of a different argument than a fan being annoyed that match is on the pre-show. I don't know. I don't understand what difference it makes.
I guess it's just the idea that it's not on the main show. It doesn't feel like it's a part of, quote unquote, the main show and the main pay-per-view. So instead you're going to have Mystico, working in front of people that are kind of mulling around and trying to get to their seats and sit down or ordering food or, that sort of stuff. I guess it's that. Whereas the main show, it's like, all right, everyone's locked in now. Everyone's ready to go. This is now the main pay-per-view. I would assume that that's probably the final match of the 0 Hour. And if that's the case, then of course you are going to have more of a crowd that's there and ready to go and watching and stuff. I guess it's about training the audience to know that the 0 Hour and the pre-show is worth watching and is essentially just part of the pay-per-view. And AEW has done that at times, and at other times they've done the pre-show panel things, where a bunch of talking heads sit there and ramble about the matches. So this might be a snap back in the other direction of like, okay, no, this pre-show does matter, and you should be locked in for that extra hour because it's going to be worthwhile to watch every single match on it. I guess that's the idea, is that I think we've been trained maybe as wrestling fans for so long that pre-shows are kind of throwaway matches, nothing happened in matches that don't matter, whatever. And this is very clearly one that does and should matter, because first off, the Lucha Brothers and Mystico teaming together is pretty incredible in the first place. They did it, I think, once before ever, way many moons ago. But
Tony Tony is claiming it's first time, but it's not.
It's not. It has happened before.
It's not. They've teamed together before. It's not first time ever.
It's been a while. 2016.
He was
I want to say. Yeah, 2016. I want to say.
He was Caristico at the time. So whoever in AEW ran the cage match search just didn't do it properly. But yeah, that trio has worked together before. What it does represent is progress in terms of the CMLL office is now okay with Pentagon and Phoenix working directly with their talent now because they don't see them as being AAA adjacent anymore.
Right.
So that's great. That's a great thing because now not only can you book them on the same television shows, as you see here, you can put them in the same matches with Pentagon and Phoenix, which is great for fans. It's easier for AEW, and that's good news for everybody involved. The wrestlers, the promotion, the fans. So, and it's pretty big that these three guys will be teaming and going up against the LIJ team. So the match should be a lot of fun. And, you got the Owen match on the pre-show. There's like meaningful matches on the pre-show. I don't know. I guess I see AEW pre-shows different than I see your typical pay-per-view, like WWE pre-show matches, which you usually throw away, like you're saying. People milling around. We talk about it all the time. I want them to load up these pre-shows with matches because their fans are usually into them, and it's usually an exciting atmosphere. And I guess from the standpoint of looking at it as maybe a slap in the face towards a star of Mystico's caliber, you could look at it that way. But just from a fan standpoint, I'm happy they're doing the match, and I don't care whether it's on the pre-show or the main show. From a fan standpoint, I don't know. Tam Nakano and Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe. I'm sure there's some people who are jacked up about that. I don't care about the Joshi, but I'm sure that match is making people
It should be pretty good. Yeah,
so,
if given time, that should be pretty good. I think
it'll get time.
Yeah.
These matches are getting time. They always do.
Well, Saraya and Mariah May does not need time. You can lop off about whatever time cue that they're going to give that match. Lop off about 4 minutes of that and give it to the Lucha Brothers or Tam and Willow versus Statlander and Momo. But Saraya and Mariah May, I think about a minute and a half should be more than enough of Saraya and Mariah May. But we'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe they'll add a fourth one. I mean, there's been times they had 4 pre-show matches.
There's a lot of guys in town. There's a lot of guys in town. There's a lot of dudes.
They shot angles. They shot an angle with Minoru Suzuki and Chris Jericho, and then they're not having a match. They shot an angle with Tomohiro Ishii, and he's not on the show. So it's fucking weird. I mean, there's all these guys that are in town that they've put on TV and shot angles with, and they're not announced for anything. Now we have Collision and Rampage coming up this weekend, and Tony loves to announce shit last minute. But we're running out of real estate here. There's already 10 matches on the main show, and there's already 3 matches on the pre-show. 10 is usually their limit, and 4 is usually their limit for the pre-show. So I could see them adding another pre-show match. I really think adding an 11th match to the main show would really be pushing it.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that. I would say there's probably, and I even said it when I started I think that there will be a 4th 0-hour match. I could see them definitely doing that. I think they get to the building, look around and say, well, you know what, you and you, let's go. All right, let's do this. Or this weekend when everybody flies in and they go, wait, he's in town, cool, let's put him up. Like I just think there's going to be too many people back there that they're going to figure out we can actually have a pretty fun match with these guys. So why don't we do that?
Well, you've got the Bang Bang Gang or whatever the fuck, and you had the Patriarchy come out last night.
Right.
But they're still feuding with House of Black, but Buddy Matthews is selling an injury because he got married the other day, so he's like not around. So do you do Bang Bang Gang versus Patriarchy? But the thing about that is they already kind of set up another match with House of Black, so it would tip off that they're winning. So I guess you just pin Nick Wayne if you do that. But it doesn't feel like the Patriarchy should be losing at all right now. I don't know. That was a weird one. That was weird when they came out. And they're both heels, and they're already the champions are already involved in a program. I didn't understand that. But that seems like a logical fit for the 4th match. Maybe do the Patriarchy versus Bullet Club Gold. I'm tired of saying Bang Bang Gang. I'm not saying it again. It's like going to IHOP. I'm not ordering the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity breakfast.
You put the menu down. Yes, sir. I will have. Yes, Brandon. I will have the Rudy Tooty.
I'm not doing it. I'm either pointing at it. I'll point at it.
Yeah.
I'll have that and point at it, right?
Sometimes that happens with beers too, like because it's always cheeky to name your beers the dumbest thing possible, and there's some where I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna point. I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying that.
And the guy will say, "Excuse me," and I'm like, "You know what I want. You know goddamn well."
Yeah.
Cut the shit, Travis. Just give me the beer. You know what I want. So
yeah. And with you, it's probably some beer with a kangaroo riding a unicycle or something.
Right. But they got a lot of cheeky names now, and it's like, dude, I don't really want to say this. Like, there's a lot of work. It's gonna take me a minute and a half to say this whole thing. Just this is the one. You know what I want. There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe I feel like they're gonna add something. Maybe they'll add that. Who the fuck knows? I do want to talk about this before we get into the main card. I feel like there's less excitement in the buildings for these New Japan guys this year versus the previous years. And I talked about this on the Dynamite review earlier today that I did. The big theme of my review was who is the AEW fan base now? Like, who are these people? I don't think it's the same people who were going to shows the first 2 or 3 years of the company.
I don't think any of those were the 16,000 people in the building for the first Forbidden Door. I'll tell you that.
In Chicago. Yeah, the one that sold out instantly.
I'll fucking tell you that because Tomohiro Ishii showed up and crickets. And Naito showed up. You getting Naito in America, that doesn't happen very often. He shows up, crickets. I know that's not the 16,000 people that went to the United Center the first time.
No. And last year, almost 14,000 people. This year, they're going to crawl maybe to 10,000. You know, it's at 9,100 right now, I think. As we do this show live on Thursday, it's set up for a little over 10,000. So we're going backwards. And just the reactions that some of the international wrestlers have been getting in a lot of these cities. Now, look, I'm sure in New York, the reactions will be different. I'm sure in Chicago, they'd be different. You know, maybe some of the more hardcore towns. But when you're in Buffalo, when you're in Winnipeg, or you're in, wherever the fuck, I just feel like we have to examine, instead of constantly examining what is AEW's identity, since they clearly don't know. So we're kind of just having this circular conversation as they continue to give this mixed presentation of what their company is. To me, too much irony, too much yuck, too much humor.
It's a very funny show. There's a lot of
funny.
There's a lot of funny on this show.
I mean, between Jericho's stuff, between the Elite, everything is tongue-in-cheek with the Elite. Between Kazuchika Okada being turned into Ron Simmons with the one-word catchphrase, and that's what everybody's waiting for. With the hamming it up and very what's the word I'm looking for the Timeless Tony stuff? Very not cheeky. I guess cheeky would work too. Just the over-the-top cartoonish nature of that whole deal.
They're not humans. The people in that story are just not humans. They're caricatures.
Right, they're not real human beings. Yeah, they're caricatures.
Luther is not a real human being. He's a character.
And it just, the overall silliness up and down the card. Now, it's not everybody and everything. You still have the Blackpool Combat Club. Swerve Strickland is very much not that. It's but there's a lot of it, is my point. Okay. You've got the guys that are on Collision all the time. What's that trios team? The Iron, the former Bear Country.
Yeah,
guys.
Iron Savages.
Savages. Yeah. The Iron Savages is a very ironic, you're supposed to think it's just up from the prelims right up to some of the main eventers. It's just a lot of silliness. What AEW lacks is hate and heat. Two very similar words, hatred and heat. There's very little of that in this company. Swerve brings it to the table. Moxley always brings it to the table. That's the shit that draws money. Personal issues, hatred, and heat. And so much of AEW now is, is irony stuff and going for laughs and winking at the audience. And, we're in on this with you. It's just silly pro wrestling and that sort of thing. And that creates the identity issues that I've been talking about since last February. But moving beyond that discussion, because quite honestly, Rich, I think we won that one. It's pretty obvious that this company is confused, and it continues, and it's pervasive throughout the card. and their most hardcore fans will deny it, but they're wrong, and we know that they're wrong. So I think where the conversation needs to move is, who are the AEW fans now? Because I don't think they're the same people who were the fans all along. This isn't the company that was meant to be the rebellious alternative, company that was going to do things different and do pro wrestling the right way. We've moved completely away from that to where we're copying so many sports entertainment tropes. And I think the reason the attendances are down and the television is stagnant is they've ran off a lot of those original fans.
100%. They have to. If that's not part of your conclusion, I don't know what your conclusion could be. Like, you know what I mean?
They've run them off.
They absolutely have. I mean, look, you mentioned Chicago. Next week, Dynamite is going to be in Chicago for July 3rd, which is a tough day to draw. July 3rd is not a great day to draw, but we got to call it like we see it. That building is set up for just over 3,000 at the Wintrust Arena. 3,000 right now, according to WrestleTix. Just kind of give you an idea of, and I'm going to go back and do some historical stuff too. So that is set up for. It's set up for 3,700. They've sold 3,182 tickets for that. That's as of yesterday. So the setup is 3,701 for the Wintrust Arena. Last time they were there, in November of 2023, and I was there. There was a lot of empty seats there. Last time they were there, 5,066. So they're setting that thing up for almost 2,000 tickets less, 2,000 seats less than they did last time in November. They were there in early 2023, June of 2023, 6,291. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's Revolution 2020 was at the Wintrust Arena. They don't have attendance on that one. Damn it! I was hoping we had attendance on that one.
Pandemic.
No. That was pre-pandemic, right just before it. Trust me.
Oh, right before it.
That was very much a. Should I go to the show? I don't know if I should be going to the show or not, but I went to anyway. I ended up being fine, not a problem. But I'll tell you that the building was sold and wasn't 3,000 tickets. I'll tell you that it was very, very packed there. Just looking at the city of Chicago,
own that city.
They used to, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up to bring this up overall is like they used to own Chicago. They are coming here in a couple of days. And they have set the building up for 3,701 tickets when they had 5,000 tickets sold last time. And that was a disappointing number. And now they're 2,000 less than they did last time. And I'll tell you, I'm not going. You can't. July 3rd, I got a lot of other stuff going on. Like that.
Right, well, that's my point. They've clearly, like, who, my question to you is this. Who are the 3,000 people still going to shows in Chicago? Who are the 2,000 people buying tickets to, wherever I don't know what Winnipeg did. I'm just using this as an example. Who were the 4,000 people who went to the show in Buffalo when there was 5,200 people in Buffalo last time? Instead of just constantly ranting and raving about how the identity is all over the map with this promotion, which, come on, we've won that one. We're beating a dead horse with that. Okay. I think the more interesting conversation is these fans that are remaining. Who are they and what do they want? It seems to be they've run off the hardcore pro wrestling fan that was looking for an alternative, a more serious wrestling promotion, which we know, they've run those people off because they've proven that they aren't that and they're never going to be that. Okay, they're gone. The last remains of those fans are us and the people listening to this show, who for some reason, because we're gluttons for punishment, we continue to hold on. And because AEW isn't bad, it's just always massively disappointing in a lot of ways. That's the problem. It's not a bad promotion. I don't think it's bad. The analogy I made is it's like being in a relationship that's perfect in like every way. And we've all been in one, right? But then the person has just one or two just terrible, non-negotiable, bad habits that you cannot overlook, and it ends up eventually sinking the relationship.
Chewing with your mouth open, that's mine. That was always mine. There was a girl I dated once. It was perfect. It was chewing with their mouth open. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this the rest of my life. Like, I can't.
Or serial cheater, or pick whatever you're fucking thinking. Someone who's far too old who just can't let go of being like a party girl, or a guy who's a mama's boy, or, whatever the case may be. That's what AEW is. They're so close to being great. They're so close to being perfect. They're so close to you committing, right? But you can't, because there's these non-negotiable, terrible habits that they have where they they continue to creep closer and closer. And there's just so much of this non-serious sports entertainment stuff getting in the way of what can be great about it. And I don't know who that's meant to serve, because you're never going to outdo WWE when it comes to that stuff. You're never, especially right now, you're not getting their fans to jump ship. They're not even going to sample what you have to offer because they have plenty of WWE to watch. And they love WWE. So you doing like a version of WWE where like the wrestling matches are better. I have news for you. These people don't care about wrestling matches. They don't give a shit. Okay? So you're not going to win them over. You've run off a lot of your core fan base who were in on changing the world, but then you showed them that you're not really about changing it. You know? And Tony talks a lot about it's for the sickos. You've run the sickos off, man. A lot of the sickos have given up on you. You know, it's just, you know, where the best wrestle. Yeah, I mean, this is a silly little sports entertainment company that happens to have a lot of good matches.
Oh yeah.
And all the other bullshit drags it down.
It's a sports entertainment company that has really, really good matches, and that's kind of where I'm at this point.
That's what it is.
And that's, you know, but who those fans are, I think those are just your.
Who are they? These people that remain. Who are they?
I think they're just the last bastions that are just hoping and praying this thing is going to be something, or just, you know, they like it. Maybe they're people that like sports entertainment with good wrestling.
I think there are people who like silly pro wrestling, but just for whatever reason don't like WWE.
All right, they want a little bit more meat out of their wrestling matches, so they like, you know, or they just they don't like NXT.
Yeah.
They don't like NXT and WWE, so
they don't like WWE's presentation, or they don't like but they like the silly stuff because it's very clear they do. They're all. I mean, Chris Jericho. Is this learning tree thing, Rich?
Oh, it's over as fuck. Yeah, he did
over.
it again.
They're all waving at him. They're doing the wave.
He did it again.
He does it every time. They're doing the wave. Okay. They're waiting for Okada to say the thing. And then they all laugh and laugh.
We talked about it last year. Remember when all of a sudden the crowds changed, and then all of a sudden you got your Adam, like those fans that were just waiting for Roderick Strong to say Adam, where it's like, my 2019 Dynamite fans were not doing that. You know, I'll tell you that. My 2021 Dynamite fans weren't ready for Roderick Strong to come on, the master of the backbreaker, and chant Adam. You know but that was the new fans they created.
I just feel like that's such a small slice of the fandom.
It's not the fandom that I would go after. It's certainly not the fandom I would go after. And guess what, Joe? Looking at WrestleTix, I don't think it's working. I think it's a bad strategy.
It's you know, I think it's that, and I think it's a lot of and I think to some degree it's people who prefer WWE, who just happen to be big time wrestling fans, who will squeeze a little more wrestling into their life, but it'll always be second to them, you see. Whereas previously AEW had a rabid and large fan base where that were willing to devote themselves to AEW. I think those people, for the most part, are fucking gone. I think what they're left with are what we affectionately refer to as the freakazoids that are never leaving or going anywhere. The equivalent of the TNA Asylum types.
Right.
You know who they are.
Who've decided that this is their identity is this promotion,
and
they're
their
identity,
locked in. And this is their promotion, and the promotion can do no wrong. AEW is my identity. They're never going anywhere. So you have those people, mix in some people who prefer WWE, but they'll go to an AEW show so they can hear Okada say the thing, and they can say "Scissor me, daddy ass," and they can laugh at Timeless Tony. I think that's what their fan base is right now. And Tony talks all this shit about the sickos and we're the best. I think those people are largely gone.
They're laughing. They laugh when he says that.
I think they're largely gone.
Yeah.
You know? And the current product is decidedly not for the sickos. And you notice when Tony says that, it's funny. I think a lot of AEW fans think Tony's talking to them when he talks about the sickos.
He's got to tell. He's got to tell when he says that.
He's got to tell. He's never talking about the learning tree when he's talking about that. He's never talking about Timeless Tony. He's never talking about people doing shtick. Whenever he refers to the sickos, it's when he's announcing some international dream match.
Right. when Hechisero's there, when Mystico's there, when those guys are there.
Ultimo Guerrero versus
yeah.
Okada.
Right.
Or when he's announcing some, work rate special that's meant to pop people like us. When he's talking about the sickos, he's talking about us. But he's talking about the people who he reeled back in with the Continental Classic when we put our fucking money where our fucking mouths were. Okay? Those are the sickos he's referring to. Not people, who think it's cute when, Mina Surik, when she goes out there with her champagne glass. That's not the sickos. But I think what Tony doesn't realize is he's lost a lot of the sickos. He can have all the cute little catchphrases he wants, about where the best wrestle, but look at last night he had 2 Can I Coexist tag team matches.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, Rich, there were 16 camera cuts to Roderick Strong and Gabe Kidd during the Zack Sabre Jr. Kyle O'Reilly match. I counted them. In a 14-minute segment, there were 16 camera cuts to Roderick Strong and Gabe Kidd making goofy faces,
right? Making silly, dumb faces as they reacted to the match they were watching.
Tony, that's not what the sickos want, Tony. That's not what we want. We want to watch the fucking match. We want to watch Zack Sabre Jr.
Kyle O'Reilly, a match that in the old days would have been like, we're giving, a sickos match, a match that's for professional wrestling fans. You're going to watch 2 of the best technical wrestlers in the world ply their craft here on Dynamite. Boom, there you go. And you're going to get a great match, and these guys are going to go out there and they're going to kill it. And like you said, the match, which I thought was pretty good, was a backdrop to Roddy and Gabe Kidd making silly faces.
Roddy and Gabe Kidd were Maxine Dupree and Otis at that WWF pay-per-view the other week. That's what they were. They were the focus of the match, and the match was the backdrop. While the announcers were going on and on about this goofy story, we just want to watch the match, man. We didn't need 16 camera cuts and more than 1 per minute to these guys making silly faces. I think they'd be better served trying to be as different as possible, but we're beating a dead horse here.
We've said that for
a
year and a half now. We've said it for a year and a half now.
They're left with 3,000 people in each of these cities that want to buy tickets to these shows.
Right. And a city they used to own, Chicago, and they're creeping up to maybe 3,200 people.
I don't get it. I don't get why. I don't know. So I don't know, the fan base that remains. I just want to know who these people are. They clearly aren't. They don't exist in great numbers. I don't think as many people are traveling to shows, right? I mean, they still, to the pay-per-views,
that travel audience.
Degree,
I think that travel audience is gone, too. The people that would travel across the country to go to any of these shows, I think that's probably done now.
They lost that cachet as, I think, was it Mike from the Mike and JD show? I'm trying to find his quote. He may have tweeted it. If you could pull up his Twitter feed real quick, I'm going to look somewhere else. He had a great quote. He said that basically AEW used to be, let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm going through his Twitter feed right now. By the way, they're going to be on the air here in a little bit. So when we're done, make sure you get on the YouTube channel, voicesofwrestling.com, or youtube.com/voices of wrestling, and make sure you watch Mike and JD show going live here. About 15, 20 minutes. I am scrolling.
Maybe he didn't tweet it. Maybe it was on the Discord. Anyway, he had a great line about it that I'll probably find at some point during the preview of this pay-per-view, and then interrupt you rudely to tell you what it was. He said, okay, yeah. He said AEW used to be a movement raging against the WWE machine, and now they're just another wrestling company. And if that doesn't sum it up, I don't know what does.
That's it. Yep.
It used to be a movement, and it's not anymore.
No, they got in line. Now they're just in line and doing their thing.
Because it's, as I warned everybody last February, I saw it coming. I saw it coming last February that they were creeping too close, and that it was going to eventually seep into the fabric of the promotion, because that's how it always happens when you open the door to this stuff. And now what we see and how this relates to Forbidden Door in this preview. By the way, I think this is an excellent lineup.
Oh, of course. Yeah. The pay-per-views still, they're the lone bastion.
Rock.
The lone bastion is the pay-per-views.
But you can see the lack of excitement relative to previous editions of this in what remains of the current fan base. Because I don't know who needs to hear this. The sickos are gone. A lot of sickos have hand-waved this company. And it's reflected in the business metrics. So we'll see how the pay-per-view does. You know, it's going to have to be carried by Swerve and Will Ospreay. We'll see how hot that match really is. What's ironic about that match is when they announced it felt like a 50-50 match. Now I think everyone knows Swerve is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And how much is that going to hurt it?
Yeah, due to the booking beats, it's pretty obvious that Swerve is going to win that one.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should go through the show.
Yeah, let's do that. So right now they're set up at this building for 10,860 per 2 hours ago from WrestleTix. Tickets distributed 9,375. So they will get to 10,000 most likely, but yeah, I mean that's like you said, we had 16,000 in the United Center for the first one.
Tony is saying that they're probably going to do $1 million gate, and he wouldn't have said that if he doesn't think they're going to.
And that's great,
so,
and that's good.
So they either already have $1 million gate, right, or
he's real damn close. Yeah, he's real close.
He wouldn't broach that otherwise. So, but look, again, that's a nice house to have about. But look, after the first Forbidden Door, I remember
you said they should put it in a fucking stadium. You said they're leaving money on the table by not putting that thing in a stadium.
They did leave money on the table with the first one because they sold that out in like 10 minutes, 16,000. I reached out to him that night after we did our show, and I said, Tony, you have something with this concept. You should put it in a stadium next year. And I forget what his response was or whatever.
Probably a Sopranos gif or something.
Probably a Sopranos gif. But you look 2 years later, and now they might not even have 10,000 people in the building for it.
It's unfathomable that they would put this in a stadium. We'd be laughing if this was in.
No, absolutely not. But that goes to show the change in the fan base. Their current fan base is not energized by a show like this.
No. Yeah, like you said, if you put that thing in Soldier Field, the original Forbidden Door, that thing sold 16,000 tickets in 10 minutes or a half hour or whatever.
They would have put 30,000 people
easy.
in that building.
I was exactly going to say it. 30,000 easily cleared for the first one.
They would have put 30,000 people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fan that I think is gone. And that's the fan that I think is making a difference. And they're chasing, I don't know what they're trying to attract. I saw some people saying today that this one just made me close the app. I think it was on Twitter. Someone was saying, oh, well, AEW has always been a variety show. And I'm like, all right, we're done here.
Yep.
Now we're playing that game.
Yep.
Where it's a variety show. All right, we're done here then. We're done here. Once we start using that terminology, we're finished here.
Yeah, you can go watch your variety show. I'm not really interested in watching another variety show.
Wrestling has that already.
I have a lot of them. Yes.
It's like, yeah. You know what? That's also basically conceding.
It's an indictment.
Right.
Exactly. It's an indictment, and you're giving up the ghost by saying, well, it's always been a variety show. It's like, okay, well, now it's a variety show. Okay.
Yeah. So you agree with me then that it's too much of a fucking, Yeah. All right. Thanks. Anyway, let's now again. I think this show's gonna be great.
Oh no! On Sunday we're gonna come on here and talk about how great the show was and how incredible these matches were and whatnot. It might go a little long. It's gonna be a long show. I'm sure of it. But it's gonna be. It looks like a hell of a show. Obviously, you talked about the world title match, Swerve and Will Ospreay. I was hoping we could come on here and have a very long debate about, who should win and the pros and the cons of this guy winning and that guy winning. I know you did that segment on the Thursday Dynamite Review a couple of weeks ago when this match first got announced. At this point, though, given what happened in the first segment of Dynamite, I would guess that the very, very heavy favorite, almost to me near lock at this point, is Swerve Strickland's going to retain this title.
Oh yeah, he's going to win the match. It's they're already setting other stuff up for Will.
Exactly.
Daniel Garcia match the following week, and then all the MJF teases. So, at Wembley, MJF, challenges Garcia. So they're either going to shoehorn Will into that and do a 3-way, which is going to be terrible. A terrible idea. It's just a total waste of all the people involved if you're going to do some stupid 3-way. Or they're just going to fuck over Garcia again, and it's going to be Will Ospreay versus MJF, in Wembley instead of, I thought Garcia MJF was a very bold idea because it's elevating Garcia into the main mix if you're going to put him in a match with MJF.
It's a risk we're taking because you want to build that guy and make a guy who people can.
It makes him look like a star in that level.
Yeah, and people point to how young he is. And he's still only 26 years old or whatever, but guys are getting older. 26 is he was 25 a year ago. He was 24 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that the longer you wait on a guy, the longer their age stops being a benefit. So I would say. If you're going to do something with Garcia and you truly believe in him, then yeah, now's the time to kind of do that. But
yeah, and it's clear that Ospreay's arc here is that, and by the way they've set up the story, is that Swerve is going to be right, and he doesn't have the necessary killer instinct, and that's what's going to cost them the match.
Right, Will's going to set him up for the Tiger Driver, and then he's going to crumble to his feet or look at his hands or whatever, and then drop him, and then Swerve's going to kick him in the head and pin him.
Yeah, and Ospreay's long arc is going to be, he's the best wrestler in the world and this talented guy, but is he ever going to have the killer drive to go all the way and be that it takes to be a world champion?
Right.
That's what they're setting up here. Plus, now that they're teasing that Hangman is the wild card, that obviously sets up Hangman winning the Owen and then going back to Hangman and Swerve, which was the feud that put Swerve on the map.
Right.
So, it's a virtual lock that Swerve is winning this match. Now that we've seen, like you said, the storyline beats play out, which takes a little bit of the intrigue out of it because now you go into the match not thinking, wow, who's going to win this? You go into the match really just thinking, okay, how are we going to get to Swerve winning it? Is Don Callis going to get involved? Is Will going to, like you said, the scenario you just laid out before, and then away we go. So from that standpoint, I think the match lost a little bit of juice. By adding a little too much story to it. But again, this is a company that feels like they have to pack so much story and everything when telling pro wrestling stories can be very simple. Hate and heat.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. You just need hate and you need heat.
Nah, Joe, you need 27 fucking people in the room, and you need Glacier and R.D. Evans and continuity editors and stuff. You need all those people to let you know that.
You need Will Ospreay to have these crisis of faith over doing a fucking wrestling move, and you just need hate.
Well, Joe, last time he injured a guy for 2 whole weeks, though. I mean, come on, he's not going to
be shaken up too.
Yeah, you can't forget that. I mean, that sticks with the man when you hurt a guy, and then he takes 2 or 3 weeks to come back. I mean, that's going to really, you're going to be shaken to the core from something like that.
Affect you, yes. Yeah. Pro wrestlers haven't been trying to hurt each other since the start of this thing either. That's never been. It's just ridiculous.
Hurt them, yes, but take them out for 2 to 3 whole weeks, Joe. I mean, that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's
that's
silly,
the man's livelihood for those 2 weeks. Like I'm sure he was still paid, but just in case, that is the livelihood of a man that he may have missed a paycheck if he was out for that entire period. So
you hope it's a great match and you see what kind of finish they can concoct. And then we kind of see the path that both guys are going to take in the aftermath. So Naito's going to beat Moxley. I think we all.
Yeah, that's a more lock. That's 100% locking in.
I think
I don't know if I'm 100 with Swerve and Will. I'm probably,
I'm 100. I'm
85, 90. I don't know if I'm 100, but you think you're 100?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm at 100. Yeah, I'm at 100.
110 with Naito beating Moxley. I would be just floored beyond belief if Naito doesn't win that title. He's winning that title. Sure.
I've seen this idea floated too that New Japan's kind of getting treated like shit on this show. I don't buy it. Okay, you have Tetsuya Naito, their biggest star, is going to win the IWGP title from one of AEW's biggest stars, in Jon Moxley. And in exchange, they don't even have to do a job to Swerve. I think New Japan's getting off great in this deal. Plus, one of the biggest women's stars in the world, Mercedes, is going to win one of their titles because she's beaten Vakir. So I don't understand. And then there's New Japan wrestlers up and down the fucking card. They're going to win the biggest match that they're in. They don't have to do a job to Swerve in return, which is normally the trade-off you do on shows like this. We beat your guy, you beat our guy. They don't even have to do that in this case.
Right. The main roster guys they're gonna, or the main New Japan guys they're gonna lose are Shingo, Tanahashi, those kind of guys that
no one cares about the undercard. I'm talking about the shit that matters.
No, the shit that matters. Naito's going to beat John Moxley and win his title back, and Mercedes is going to win the New Japan title. And
then wrestle on New Japan shows.
Yeah.
How is New Japan not winning here? They're getting off great. I don't understand. If you're like some hardcore New Japan fan, they're getting a great end of this bargain here. You don't have to have someone lose to Swerve. You're not even being asked to do that trade-off. Okay, and you're getting Mercedes on your shows down the line, and you're getting Naito beating Moxley probably clean as a sheet to win that title back. I don't know. I don't see how New Japan is being treated so poorly here. I think they're in a great position.
Yeah. Yeah, CMLL and Stardom could maybe have some real beef here with
Mystico's on the pre-show, like we talked about.
Right, and Stardom
Tetsuya Naito's not on the pre-show.
No.
He's beating John Moxley for the IWGP title.
Yeah.
I don't know. These New Japan fans have been annoying me lately. They're not being rational about things.
No, well, they haven't been.
And I'm not exactly.
I haven't been rational.
I'm not
for a while,
exactly.
Let's be honest.
And I'm not exactly an AEW cheerleader, as people can see. And I'm just viewing this through the lens of being fair. And I think New Japan is doing fine in this. But Pearl fans, we know how they can be a lot of the time.
And they're still upset about Ospreay and Okada.
Of course, and I understand that. I totally get that. Jay White, Okada, Will Ospreay. I understand.
Honestly, they can have Jay White back if they want. I'm done with the Bang Scissor King. If they want to take him back, they could have him back. I don't
know. I prefer Jay White in AEW. I think that as someone who watches both promotions, he had gotten so stale in New Japan.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like in a perfect world, I think Okada is still in New Japan. Especially now that I see what they're doing with Okada here. But Jay White, I think I'd rather watch him in AEW.
I'd rather watch him not in the Bang Scissor Gang, if that's possible. If it's possible to get him away from the guns, I would like that.
So Mercedes is going to beat Vakir. So I think the top three are all 100%. I think that does hurt the show to some degree. So from that standpoint,
that should be good.
But
they've had good matches in the past, and hopefully the crowd's pretty hot for that. But yeah, I'm the same as Naito, 100% on Mercedes beating Vakir for that title.
Yeah, I really don't have much else to add on that one. And then the ladder match, which I don't know, I'm annoyed that the ROH World Champion is competing for some mid-card title in AEW, but that's the choice Tony made. And that's why it's going to be so hard to sell ROH as a big deal to fans when it's time to try to do that. I would have tried to, but that is what it is. Maybe there aren't even any more plans to try to sell ROH.
We might be. You talk about who are the AEW fans? Who are the ROH fans, man?
I don't know.
Who is slapping their hands together and saying, "Oh, here we go, baby," firing up their Honor Club.
I thought putting 1,300 in that building for Death Before Dishonor would be a lock. They only set it up for 900.
Yeah.
And they might not get there.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised about that. I thought, but that's a topic.
It's got zero cachet. Yeah, it's tough for another day. But Ring of Honor's got
Jack Perry. So Jack Perry's winning this, right?
Correct. This
is another match that's basically a lock.
Briscoe's not winning it. I don't think Takeshita's winning it because obviously he's about to go into the the G1 pretty soon, so they don't want him to have a title in the G1. No, do you want to put any amount on Leo Rush? Like a
no
5%? It's probably not Jack Perry. Definitely Dante Martin, no way, and El Phantasmo, no way. Yeah, it's Jack Perry.
Jack Perry is not in this match to lose it unless he's in the last two. I know it's not an elimination, but unless it's down to him and someone else, and then he beats that person for the title on another show or something. That's the only scenario where he's not winning. But I don't see anyone in this match who they're going to do that with. The dynamic with Takeshita just doesn't feel right. He's the only one that you can Briscoe has the ROH title already.
Yeah.
And none of the other people are a big enough deal to feud with Jack Perry.
No.
They're not going to have Jack Perry
Martin
feud with Dante Martin.
Yeah, that's probably not happening. So
the story in this match for Dante is with Leo Rush.
Yeah.
are they going to get along? You know, they were shaking each other's hand. I want to shake your hand, you know, after every match that they have now, like the guy in the airplane. You know, so that's their story. There's a little story in the match. Phantasmo is just there for New Japan. The energy with Takeshita is not right for a feud with Perry because they're both heels. And I don't think they're going to do it with Mark Briscoe.
No.
So do you notice too, Mark Briscoe did that really great promo a couple weeks ago. So now they have him do one every single week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is with it's the subtlety hammer, Rich. They can't let anything. They can't just let anything be cool.
And now they have Kyle O'Reilly do it in front of him, and then he nods in approval of, oh, yeah, you're doing it right, or whatever. Yeah, and making his funny faces. It's all, yeah.
Shibata did the press conference with the phone.
And now he does the phone every week.
As a shoot, like, because he couldn't speak English. Like, he thought that it wasn't a gimmick. And people thought it was cute and amusing. Now he does it he's been doing it every week for months now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All these little things, like it's the subtlety hammer that we've talked about for years with the other company. They can't just let something be amusing.
Well, and they're all wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And they're all like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, ha, ha. Like even the Briscoe stuff, which I think is good. The promos are good. But they're being done.
They're great. He's great.
But they're being done for comedy now.
Yes.
And that bothers me.
Now it's a bit.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas Okada called someone a bitch and it got over, right? So they have this WWE brain where now he has to say it every week. You have to have Ron Simmons show up at some point and go, damn. Right? Yeah.
Which feels like a waste of one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Kazuchika Okada, who's supposed to be in this.
And also what it does is it's a waste of something that got over, where if you use it sporadically when it matters, it'll mean more. Do you see what I'm saying?
Of course.
Like, now every time he's on TV, everyone's waiting for him to say the word, and they're waiting for him to do the thing where he fake laughs and then does the deadpan, because that got over once. Remember he beat the Jobbers and did the deadpan?
Yeah, which was great.
And we were like, oh, that was great. But then someone in the room said, oh, that got over. He has to do it every week.
Yeah.
You know what other company operates like that? I know one.
3 letters.
And you're not going to win their fans over.
They start with W.
No matter how much you try to be like them.
No. They're good.
That's my problem.
They're being very satiated right now with the product that they're given.
I mean, fuck, man. And I know there's probably some people who like the idea of, oh, we get to have this wacky sports entertainment without the black cloud of Vince McMahon, or without, for whatever other reason I might not like WWE. But that's just, to me, that's chasing such small potatoes. And that's being reflected in their attendance. Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa. A lot of people are into this. There's no denying it. It's not for me. Not everything on the show needs to be for me.
Right.
Okay. Campy was the word I was looking for before. It's also campy. And I really
someone
don't
put in the
care
chat room
about
maudlin. I like that term too. Maudlin. That's a good term.
Yeah. Maudlin, campy. Rich, I don't give a fuck about any of this. I don't care which one Mariah May decides to fucking scissor with in the back. I don't care about Mina Shirakawa's tits. I don't care about all the implied lesbianism. None of this appeals to me. I don't give a shit about any of this. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I'm right with you too. It's a story that doesn't really resonate with me. And there's a great piece up at voiceswrestling.com from Roma, who just started contributing to the website. And she does a really good job of breaking it down and made me understand a little bit why people like this story and what people are getting from this story. And it seemed like a lot of people agree with it too. A lot of people on Twitter saying, yeah, this is. And I read it and I was like, yeah, it all makes sense. You know what I mean? But it doesn't resonate with me. I don't care. I just want to see two people fight to determine who's better and especially when the women's title's on the line. And a lot of people are into, I suppose, not enough people to buy tickets, but a lot of people are into the idea of, oh, well, who's Mariah May going to stay with and all this sort of interpersonal stuff. I just want two people to fight. I might Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi. You know what I mean? Later in the night, I'm going to get Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi, and these guys are going to get in the ring with each other, and they're going to beat the fuck out of each other for 18 minutes, and eventually Bryan Danielson is going to tap Shingo Takagi out, and he's going to hold his hand up high and move on in the tournament to get a shot at the AEW title. That's just kind of what I want. I'm sorry. So
that's going to be a great match, but it's another one that's 100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
one of the problems, Hechicero MJF. I mean, you know,
come on.
I want to see how
riding the momentum of his victory over Zack Sabre Jr. You don't think Hechicero is going to beat MJF? Come on.
So I want to see how they work together. But again, one of the big problems with this show is I think the show is going to be great. The problem is
very predictable.
There's like 6 or 7 matches where the winner is not in doubt at all. Like not even a little bit, 100%. And Orange Cassidy is like 90% over Zack Sabre Jr. I wouldn't put that one at 100.
I would let's see. Cassidy. Yeah.
Zach doesn't win on these shows.
Zach doesn't win on these shows. Yeah. It's probably, I would probably say Cassidy's 75, but yeah, it's not, it's, if I was betting, Cassidy would be, I would definitely put money on him. And the Elite's beating Tanahashi and the Acclaimed too. I think.
I think they are too, but I don't put it at the same. Yeah, I guess the Acclaimed won the Eliminator. Would it make sense for them to then lose this? Because they have to get a title shot.
Oh, that's true. They're still getting a title shot. Yeah. And the Jacksons,
so
they like to lose, so that's possible.
And this is not New Japan Tanahashi. I don't know how Tony's going to book Tanahashi. You know what I mean? It was a New Japan match. Tanahashi doesn't, you know. But MJF's 100%. I think Jack Perry's 100%. Some may disagree. But Mercedes, Naito, and Strickland are 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's 4 or 5 matches where the winner is not even.
I think you could probably lock Tony in too. I mean, maybe they do something where Mina gets the win or whatever.
I can't. No. Mina could. I can't say 100% though. I can't because there's too much going on.
Not 100%, but I'd say a heavy favorite to me is Tony.
She's a heavy favorite. Yeah, no doubt about it. She's a heavy favorite. All right. So what haven't we talked about? We haven't talked about Hook, Shibata, and Samoa Joe versus the Learning Tree. I don't know why they shot that match with Suzuki. I guess maybe Jerry with him next week on Dynamite or something. But they're going to team with Jeff Cobb.
Felt unnecessary to build to a match that's not happening on a week when there's 6,000 things happening and you got a pay-per-view coming up in a couple days. Yeah,
too many stories. They tell too many stories. This is a match that can go either way, I guess. I mean, if it were me, I would put the 6-man titles on Samoa Joe, Shibata, and Hook. I would just push them to the moon and put those titles on them.
I think it's a good crew. Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I think it's good for Hook to be. I think this trio is doing wonders for him. I think it's good for him to get him away from the FTW title and put him with Joe. And I think a lot of that badass is rubbing off on him.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. He feels like more of a badass because Joe feels like he's like, hey, follow me, buddy, and I'll turn you into a killer or whatever. And you add in Shibata there too. Aside from the goofy little the phone thing, that when Shibata gets in the ring though, he still has that aura of this guy's a shooter and he can kill you and that sort of stuff. So I agree, it's helping Hook a lot. So I would move to get those titles on somebody legit quickly, and these are the 3 that I would definitely pick.
Yeah. So I think that's every match.
I think that's it. And one thing I wanted to bring up before we finish this preview is I think that predictable isn't always bad. I think a lot of the matches being predictable isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's like they've told decent enough stories with most people and it makes sense where directions we're going or whatever. I do understand, though, that it does hurt the intrigue a little bit of this show where you're going in and saying, all right.
A lot of predictable, though. It's a lot.
It is. And I think that's maybe the problem is that you can really look at most of the card and most of the big time matches on the card. It would be nice if Swerve and Will, if we didn't have that segment to start off this week's Dynamite, I think I might still have a little bit of maybe they do Will and someone at Wembley or whatever, and maybe they decide, but now it feels like a mortal lock there. And yeah, I think that probably hurts it a little bit. And the fact that MJF is in a match against Hechicero, there's just no doubt about that. And yeah, that probably hurts a little bit from that standpoint of the big time matches don't necessarily have that intrigue. I don't think that's going to make it like a bad show, or whatever. But yeah, you're not going to be on the edge of your seat, trying to figure out how's this match going to end or whatever. I think we all pretty much know how most of these matches are going to end unless they get silly. And I don't want them to do that either. I don't want them to get silly and just do surprises just for the sake of surprises because that's not good either. But yeah, it does hurt that so many of the matches seem very, very, very predictable on this night. But I still
predictable is good and okay when you're building to something to peak. I don't know if predictable is good when it's like 6 matches on a 10-match show where it's like
yeah.
There's no doubt who's winning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's like most AEW matches. That's been a big problem. They don't, you know, this used to be a promotion where they would beat people and weren't afraid to beat people. I don't know what happened and when that changed. You know, and you would get surprising finishes like Brian Cage upsetting Hangman Page, or Darby going to a draw with Cody, or
the first show I did it on Change the World. Chris Jericho beat Kenny Omega. And trust me, it makes, you know, eventually people said, oh yeah, that makes sense. At the time, you can hear the crowd go, oh,
yeah,
wow, no, we didn't expect that at all. We thought Kenny was a lock to win this thing. It's all elite wrestling. And Jericho goes out there and you know, debuts his new move and hits that back elbow or whatever, knocks out Omega, gets the 1, 2, 3. The crowd is in a stunned silence at the beginning because it was like, fuck, really? Kenny Omega just lost to start out this company? And it's, you know, I think that, you know, set the stage for what they were going to be in the early days. Is like, watch these shows and watch these matches. You don't know who's going to beat who and when they're going to beat them, but this, you know, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And now it does feel like they are a little bit more apprehensive.
Yeah, and we're not afraid to beat people. Like Cody losing that match where he said he would never challenge for the title again.
Right.
He lost.
Great example. Yeah.
Or Private Party beating the Young Bucks in the first round of the tag team tournament. Or, you know, it's like there's a bunch of examples, you know, and now one of the big complaints is every match on TV, you can pick the, you know, anyone can pick the winner of every match that's on TV. And we're staring at a pay-per-view where there's like 6 or 7 matches where the outcome isn't even remotely in doubt. And, you know, so yeah, I agree. You know, sometimes the predictable finish is the right finish and it's okay. But they've been a little heavy-handed with that lately, where it's just too predictable. And, you know, we thought we had this great 50-50 world title main event, and they've almost told too many stories and booked too well to where now it's like we know who's going to win.
Right.
You know,
they're getting out ahead of Wembley, which is nice because last year's Wembley bill was fucking terrible and they didn't, you know, get ahead of it.
Yeah.
But we're too ahead of it. Let us have Forbidden Door and then next week you can build it. The problem is they're building it already now, and we already kind of see the beats that they're going to.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Why couldn't you do that? Well, I guess you know why they wanted to do it in Buffalo. I just answered my own question. Because you could have done that. Yeah, they wanted to do it in Buffalo because you could have done that segment next week after Willow had already faced Strickland. You know, and you could have, you know, and maybe not totally tipped your hand. Although I think people were starting to realize Swerve was going to win anyway. But they wanted to do that in Buffalo so Garcia would get the big pop and look like a big star. I get it. But yeah, I mean, the wrestling on the show should be fantastic. I think it really has a chance to be a great show. It's not a lock to be a great show, but it has a chance to be a great show. And we'll see what else they add to it. And I don't know. That's Forbidden Door.
Yep.
It's the Reaction Live this Sunday.
Absolutely. Get into it, baby. Instant Reaction Live, $10 tier immediately after the show over here at Flagship, patreon.com. All right, so we have a couple of minutes left in the show. Enough time, I think, to do a pretty decent segment here. CMLL, let's catch ourselves up with the world of CMLL. A lot going on over the last couple weeks. A lot of really fun shows, a lot of fun matches, hot crowds, big crowds. They were doing the Mystico 20th anniversary sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, special events or your tour or whatever you want to call it. They did a couple of shows, big time audiences for Mystico's 20th anniversary, celebrating his 20 years in wrestling, and had a bunch of really good shows last week as well, culminating in a Friday and Saturday doubleheader that had a lot of really, really good standouts, including the Saturday show, which I watched the entire show of that one, that featured Zack Sabre Jr. and Hechicero, which I thought that match rocked. I don't know what you thought about Zack Sabre Jr.
Let's do Friday. Do Friday Arena Mexico first, just to keep it in order.
That makes sense.
That way. So Friday was the Fantasticomania Mexico show.
Yes,
is what it was.
Oh, I watched both these shows. Actually, never mind. I saw both these shows the whole way through. So
yeah, that was the Friday Arena Mexico show. Another packed house that had Mystico and Hiromu on top. Very quickly, the undercard, you had Futuro and Max Star in Vegas. I love this Vegas with the dollar signs on his mask.
Yeah, he's solid. Yeah, I like.
I like that guy.
There's a few undercard guys in CMLL that I like. I'll talk about one when we talk about the 622 show.
And then it was Astro Boy Jr. and the two Dr. Carantes, Dr. Carante 1 and 2 on the other side. This is a high energy opener, and you could tell, sometimes even with the Arena Mexico shows, sometimes you never know what you're going to get with an opener, especially if there's new people that typically aren't getting the big Friday night slot on the Arena Mexico shows, or but when it's big shows like this and everyone has their working shoes on, you could almost tell immediately. I thought this match rocked and was the perfect opener, and I thought everybody looked real good. So I enjoyed the hell out of it. The Futuro and Max Star, who have been a team lately, and Vegas side were the winners. Vegas is just like I'm ironically a fan of his. Like, he's basically just a base. He's like a big muscular guy. He doesn't ever do a ton. But I like the gimmick. Like, he's got the dollar signs. All over him.
I'm going to talk about a guy on the 622 show that's not good, but I'm in. I'm all in on his look. But yeah, Vegas with the big dollar sign. He's got the one eye is you could see through the one eye, and the other's got like a mesh on it or whatever. I think he's still doing that gimmick or whatever. No, he's a brick shithouse too. Gold chains.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
Yeah, it's fun. So
he's like a guy. Like, his gimmick is like, I got money.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a prelim wrestler.
I still got money. Yeah, that's all right.
So
he made good investments.
What'd you think of Bad Dude Tito and Shea Cabrera working an unfamiliar style against
what was that? I don't.
Magnus and Ruggiero here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by my guy Bad Dude Tito. So it kind of worked. It wasn't a great match.
Now, this
but
wasn't a title match. They didn't do a tag title match.
No.
I don't think it was a title match. I think it was just
2 out of 3 falls straight. Yeah, no title.
But our champions, I like these guys. I mean, they've been champions forever. This was two big dudes who, aren't typically work the lucha style, and I thought they acquitted themselves well to the style.
Oh, Tito could make rounds there regularly if he wanted to, and he should. He probably should start doing that.
Yeah, Tito's been getting work everywhere, and he's doing a nice job. And that Shea Cabrera is like the spitting image of him. They should take that act everywhere. They should take that team everywhere. But yeah, the tag champs defeat the big guys in the 2 falls to 1. And then we had Stephanie Vakir versus Catalina. I thought this match rocked. I thought Catalina looked great.
She's young as hell, too. I don't know if people remember, she was in WWE for a little while as Katrina Cortez, and I think she was Catalina in WWE as well. And she was in a couple of their women's tournaments or whatever. They had her for a while. And I remember when she got released, Cubs fan and a few other people were like, yeah, they probably missed the boat on her. This girl's got a lot of talent and is still only scratching the surface. And I think she comes from a wrestling family as well. And I was right with you. I was very, very impressed by what I saw out of her. And yeah, still only 24 years old, so there's still a lot of time for growth. But I saw this and said, oh, hold on a minute. This may be somebody with some buzz and can get going here a little bit. But no, I agree. And Vakir, I like her a lot. I think she's really, really good. But yeah, I was surprised at how well Catalina did in this match too. So they definitely have something in her.
Yeah, and then Mercedes came out and cut the promo on Vakir, and Vakir was funny. I don't understand Spanish, but basically what she says, if you're going to come to Arena Mexico, you shouldn't speak English. And the crowd popped for that because Mercedes did the promo in English. But or she said you should speak Spanish.
Right. Apparently Catalina had an ovarian cyst during this match too and went to the hospital immediately afterwards. So
yeah, that came out after, I think,
that match with an ovarian cyst is, man, what could she do without crippling pain in her ovaries? That would be, yeah, that I was very impressed by her. I definitely put a circle on her and said, okay, hold on, this is something here.
So Rocky Romero and Taiji Ishimori over Mascara Dorada and Templario. They did the mask pull finish in the 3rd fall where they pulled off the mask, and then, the baby face has to give up the win to protect his face. So Rocky, when he's here in Arena Mexico, he's one of the biggest heels in the world and one of the most over heels in the world. They team with Taiji Ishimori, and It's a good match.
I like this match a lot. Yeah. Dorada and Templario, I think they're just an awesome team, and obviously crazy over here in Arena Mexico. And it helps that Rocky there is just such a fucking hated heel, man. They despise this guy, and he works it perfectly. He does the sliding on the knees spot, and the fans just get annoyed every time. He does his little fucking shaking of his shoulders, and they're fucking pissed. And he'll use the ropes, he'll pull a mask, he'll do anything to get these guys. And yeah, I think Dorada and Templario did such a great job of being, the good guys here and saving themselves in that third fall, like you said with the mask thing. But I thought they look smooth as hell. And Dorada, I think he's great. I love Templario too. I think Templario is really, really good and just has a crowd connection that just really stands out. This, I would say if you're going to go back and watch this, I mean, honestly, watch the whole show. You can get in and out in about 2 hours, I think 2.5 hours. But this match and the women's match, 100% you need to watch. And we'll talk about a few of the other matches coming up that you need to watch. But this one, I love this. I know a cage match is not very high on it, but I thought it was phenomenal.
I'm more in line with the cage match rating. I thought it was okay. I didn't think there were any great matches on the show. I liked the women's match a lot. I guess that's a spoiler alert for the main event, but we'll do this first. Oku and Zack Sabre Jr. defeat Averno and Volador Jr. In the third fall, both teams started to not get along. So they were like breaking up their own pinfalls.
Yes.
Now, Oku has done a nice job. I saw some of his other stuff. When he debuted, to put the single leg crab over, they had the guy do like a stretcher job. So they've done a real good job in getting Oku over by getting the single leg crab over as like this devastating hold that's going to break your back. And he's fit in very well. Sometimes people don't fit in very well working this style, but I think he's done a nice job.
He has done a great job. Yeah. The music, it's wild to hear that music in like Arena Mexico. I kind of had to do because I'm so used to hearing it on Rev Pro. And like Andy Quillen be like, you know what I mean? I was just like, I had this weird
2 cans in a string.
Right. I couldn't believe. I was like, what am I hearing? Oh my God, it's Oku's music in Arena Mexico. And there's not, my ears aren't exploding from the Rev Pro production. But no, he's acclimated himself very well. I watched a couple of his matches as well before this night. And yeah, he's working out well in CMLL. I think he's gotten better overall over the last couple of years. But you see him here, and you're like, oh yeah, this could become a frequent spot for him if he wants to do tours here.
Yeah. So Oku and Sabre win, but the theme of the third fall was neither team was getting along. I think Averno just has such great presence, particularly in this building. He comes out with his entrance with that hood on, and he's just he doesn't have the same he doesn't have that same presence in like when he's in MLW. But when Averno is in Arena Mexico, he just has. That's why he's one of my favorite guys. He just a certain presence to him that he just feels like such a big star. And then Mystico versus Hiromu. All right, here comes the hot take of the show, Rich. I thought this was long, and I thought it sucked.
Damn it.
I was so bored.
No,
I was bored out of my mind watching this match.
I didn't like this match at all. I hated this match.
This match was just, it never ended. It was boring as hell. I thought Hiromu mailed it in.
Yes, that is 100% my take. I thought Mystico is as over as he is. Sometimes he can not deliver on a major level, but he was over as fuck. This arena was ready for him. This is kind of the culmination of his 20th anniversary, and I thought Hiromu saw this as a night off. Like, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do some basic ass heel stuff. And then we're going to do, a very, very pedestrian back and forth 25-minute match or whatever. And then Mystico just beat him. That was my take, too. I did not like this match at all.
I think Mystico is good, but rarely great.
Yeah.
I recognize his charisma. I recognize his star power. I love watching him. I almost never think he's in the best match on the show. But I think he's a good wrestler. I just don't think he's great. Hiromu, I just didn't think he was just so listless, I thought, in this match. And I thought the match was it felt endless, and I thought it was boring, and it just didn't work for me at all. I thought this was like a 2-star match. I just couldn't get into it.
And they did a long period where Hiromu was working over Mystico's legs and working over his legs and working over his legs and doing this to his legs. And then Mystico just jumped up and started, springboarding on the ropes and won. And I was just like, all right, well, what did I just watch for 20 minutes then if it's just not gonna
just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then they did the big ceremony and everything for Mystico, and that's fine. And the next night was in Arena Coliseo, which was the Hechicero Zack Sabre Jr. match that had all kinds of buzz. And I guess we'll just skip right to that. I mean, in contrast to Mystico and Hiromu, I thought this match was just beautiful pro wrestling. I thought it was so great. A lot of times this style can be tricky for me, but I think it helps that I really like both of these guys.
And a molten hot crowd too. This crowd was
the crowd was so great,
fucking invested so much in every single move that these guys did, and got it and gets the style of wrestling. And I think that always helps too with these.
As many people have pointed out, this is the more hardcore wrestling crowd in this building versus Friday night in Arena Mexico, where there's a lot of tourists and people who are just there to, have a good time, and that's fine. But they might not have appreciated this match the way that this.
Oh, this is the best spot to have this match in, for sure. This little building with everybody. This is the place to do it.
Yeah, and I thought this was just phenomenal. And Hechicero just does stuff that nobody else on earth does. And, the final fall, he kind of had his feet on that bottom turnbuckle.
Yeah, he did. I was wondering if Zach was going to raise a fit and say, hold on a minute.
Yeah, but these guys were just so great together. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, if it makes you kind of like if Forbidden Door could have been reworked and they could have had this match on Forbidden Door in front of such a larger audience. You think this match would get over on a Forbidden Door show and with an American pay-per-view audience? I think it would. I think it would.
I think this is the type of match that would. The problem is, we talked about it before, the modern AEW audience. 2 years ago, yes, 100%.
But the pay-per-view audience in New York might be a little
the pay-per-view audience. I do think that this is a universal match that no matter what, like being in the building it was in, probably brought it up to a completely another level. But I still think if you threw this on Forbidden Door, I think it might take a little longer. Like in this match, like before the bell rang, the crowd was all in. The crowd was 100% invested. We're all, whatever you guys are going to take us on, whatever journey you're going to take us on, we're in. I don't think that would happen from the bell on Forbidden Door if it happened on Sunday, but I think a couple minutes into the match and a couple of near falls, they would have gotten into it because I think it was just that good once things really got going. So maybe you missed a little bit of that early buzz that happened in this match that made it so fun, but I do think eventually you could get this crowd, or you could get the Forbidden Door crowd to like this match.
Yeah, it was great. It was the best of the bunch that, with these CMLL shows that I watched this week. I did watch the Angel de Oro versus Rocky Romero Lightning match. That was a lot of fun.
I liked that match a lot. That was going to be my take.
Really
I like that match better than, and my take was going to be, I like that match better than the main event of the Arena Mexico match with Mystico and Hiromu. Because like Angel de Oro, again, the same thing. It's like this crowd is just, they fucking hate Rocky Romero. And then you got this, Angel de Oro who's trying to kind of navigate his career now. He's a little older. What is he? I forget what he is. He's in his 30s, right? Late 30s. He's not a young. He looks young, but he's not young.
Says he's 36.
That's probably accurate. Would you?
Why wouldn't it be accurate?
I don't know if they would be lying about that. Yeah, I'm sure it's accurate. I'm sure it's good.
He's unmasked. We know this man's identity.
It's true. But he looks a lot younger. You know what I mean? He looks a lot younger, and obviously he's navigating the world as an unmasked man or whatever. So. But the crowd was all invested in him, and this match was all about him kind of surviving Rocky Romero, surviving him, maybe getting the win, them doing the countdown clock or whatever. But a lot of fun. For people that don't know, it was a lightning match, which meant they had a 10-minute time limit. They put the time on the clock from the beginning of the match, so you could see it the entire time. And it made there was as I'm watching, and I'm watching unspoiled. I did not know they were going to go to the time limit. There was a little bit of that tension there where you're like, oh, hold on a minute. We're getting pretty close here. We're 8 minutes on. And they worked that. And the crowd, like you said, the smarky crowd knew what was happening. They probably knew they were going to see a time limit draw, but they still really, really wanted Angel de Oro to get out. Come on, please pin this guy before the 10-minute time limit. And they're counting down to the seconds and come on, do it. And he didn't do it. And they went to the time limit draw. But I thought that was really, really fun. So yeah, make sure you definitely, if you're going to catch up on CMLL, do not skip time limit draw Angel Oro and Rocky Romero.
We had him in that, the front face lock. He was trying to submit him at the end, and then Angel Oro reversed it into a submission, and Rocky was just holding on for the last few seconds.
Yeah.
And then went to time limit draw. Now, main event was Mystico and Taiji Ishimori versus Hiromu and Volador Jr. This was the match where Taiji Ishimori got hurt, and they went short, so I didn't bother watching it. So I can't comment on it because I blew it off. Because
it was okay, and I don't know if it would have gotten that much better in the next 10 minutes. The problem is Ishimori is kind of, I don't know if he was giving his A game, and Hiromu was kind of the same too.
He worked hard the night before, Ishimori.
Yeah, on this night he was, I don't know, he wasn't working. I don't think he was not working hard. It was just
he got hurt, right?
He got hurt. Yeah. I don't know. I forget exactly when he got hurt, but in before he, I don't know. He didn't seem to have his A game, and maybe it was the injury or maybe the impending injury or whatever it was. Hiromu was good at doing like heel shtick, but he wasn't going to go out here and kill himself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Mystico was over as fuck. Like, the crowd just went absolutely nuts for him. And Hiromu instead just decided he was just going to, play to the crowd. And then, Mystico would get up to the top rope and open his arms, and the crowd would go, yeah. And then Hiromu would go, what about me? And everybody would boo him, and they did that like 4 or 5 times. You know what I mean? It was just basic heel shtick. Yeah. And again, ended in 10 minutes, which obviously was probably not the plan. They probably wanted this to go a little bit longer, but I don't know. I wouldn't, I don't think I would go out of your way to watch this match. Other than the Mystico entrance. You should probably watch the Mystico entrance, and then you should probably leave after that point. So watch Hechicero Zack Sabre Jr., watch Angel Oro and Rocky Romero, and then watch Mystico's entrance, and then you could probably move on with your day.
Yeah. There was the Tuesday shows from Guadalajara and Arena, Mexico. I didn't get to those yet, but I'll probably watch them. I watch all this stuff. We just never talk about it.
Yeah, we got to find a chance to talk about this more.
We haven't talked about it in a couple of months, probably since the anniversary show, right? I mean, no, not the anniversary show. Yeah, maybe. No, I can't remember, but probably talked about it since then. But yeah, so this was a big week for them, though. And the U.S. Fantasticomania show is coming up in what city is that in? Not Northern Cal. Is it Northern Cal? Is it
San Jose or something, right?
Somewhere.
I think it's San Jose.
Somewhere in Northern California. Hold on, let me see if I can pull that show up real quick, because I think that's a pretty interesting card.
I thought it was in San Jose.
San Jose, yeah, you're right. San Jose. That's Northern California.
Yeah.
So we got Viento versus Adrian Quest versus the DKC versus Kuki. I don't know who that is, and he has no cage match profile. Hechicero and Virus versus Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr.
Okay.
Zack Sabre Jr. and Hechicero.
That sounds awesome.
Stephanie Vakir versus, I can never pronounce the 2 L's. Huvia, I guess how you pronounce it.
Sure, you're asking me to pronounce that. I got nothing for you, man. Yeah.
Javia, this is Lave, right? So Luvia, I don't know. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Rocky Romero and Volador Jr. versus Dookie and Mystico. That's the deal where you team with your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Cavanario versus Yota Tsuji. I mean,
Okay.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that.
Gabe Kidd defends the Strong New Japan Strong title against Ultimo Guerrero, who hopefully isn't forced to wear a mask.
Can hopefully do what he's been doing for the last 7 years and not wear a mask.
Someone made a good point. Tony claims he's for the sickos. Why would you put a mask on Ultimo Guerrero if this is for the sickos?
Right, because the sickos know that the man lost his mask
The
6 or
sickos
7
know
years
he
ago.
hasn't had a mask for a decade. So
Yeah.
why are you making him wear a mask? And then the MLW, it never stopped. The world of MLW,
It's
Rich,
even here.
as Okamura and Satoshi Kojima defend the MLW tag team titles against our boys, the Los Depredadores, Magnus and Ruhido.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a lot of fun.
It does. Listen, I think we could have a title change.
I think we could too. Yeah.
MLW's been booking those guys. I could see them winning, and then court booking those guys, and then they come and lose them on an MLW show somewhere. It's not possible, right?
It's not. It's definitely not.
So that's a fun looking show from the Mount Pleasant High School in San Jose, California.
I can't believe it's at a high school.
It's in a couple weeks. It's not this week, but
yeah,
it's on the 13th. So I'm sure that'll be available on some kind of fucking streaming gimmick, right?
I meant to tell you this. Okay, so you didn't watch the rest of the 622 show, right?
No, I did not.
You have to watch the second match on the show, 622. I'm glad I remember this. Right. Your boy Vegas, teamed with my guys, who I am all in on these guys right now, Dark Magic and Espanto Jr.
La Ola Negra.
Yeah, man. They come out with their little top hats and flak jackets. and Espanto's got the mask. And Dark Magic's like an old school kind of like, he kind of, I don't know how to describe him. He's kind of has like an old school manager vibe to him. You know what I mean?
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They're wearing the suits and the ties, a top hat.
Espanto Jr.
There is no better look than suit, tie, and mask. Then you throw in the top hat, like they look like a gangster, you know what I mean? Like the 1920s
let me see where they wrestled here.
Duster hat. Yeah, it was it was rocked.
Arcalis, Pegaso, and Stigma. All right, I'll watch it.
I don't know if the match was any great shakes. And Espanto Jr.
So you just like these.
The vibes, man. The vibes.
Magic and Espanto Jr. Yeah,
and then they get in the ring with your boy Vegas, and they're like, "Let's do work." And they're big guys, man. There's a lot of bulk out there. You know what I mean? It was good. But yeah, Espanto Jr.
Did you watch the micros in the opener or no?
I did. I don't. The micros never really.
Yeah.
Some people love that shit. I don't know if it's ironic or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
It never does much for me. Yeah, you can have your micros. I'll take Espanto Jr. in Vegas. These two brick shit high. Hey, Dark Magic's no slouch himself, big dude too. I'll take the big boys over that. But these guys come out in the suits and ties and top hats and masks and they weren't
fun
good.
Act.
They weren't good, but that's all right. Espanto's the former. He was like Pentagon Junior or something, right? What was he? He was some form of Pentagon. Right? Wasn't he that guy? Yeah, Espanto. Wasn't he
Espanto Jr.?
Yeah, I thought he did a run as a fake Pentagon. I think when Pentagon left CMLL, maybe he was the fake Pentagon for a little. I forget exactly. Don't quote me on that. But he's.
I already closed the page.
That's fine. That's fine. Someone will message me. Cubs fan will message me tomorrow and tell me all about Espanto Jr. But I'm all in. I like it. So yeah, let's make sure we carve out some more time for CMLL moving forward because a lot of other wrestling not really landing with me right now, but these CMLL shows definitely did land with me.
Well, I got to tell you, I got a lucha rec for everybody, and some people may have seen it already, but I watched that El Hijo de Fishman versus Mascara Dorada NG Bull Terrier match from March.
Oh, okay.
That's been making the rounds.
Classic Bull Terrier match, yeah.
Fucking rocked. It rocked. It was so fucking cool. Now, I did a written review, and that'll be out in a couple days. That match, Dynamite Kid versus Jet Wee from Kyushu Pro, and I got to find 2 more matches to do. So I'm not going to give away my whole review, but it's on YouTube, and it's a must watch. I love the dog collar matches. You know I love the dog collar matches, okay? These two guys fucking... Hio de Fishman was so good in this match.
We get bloody? We bleeding a little bit here?
Oh, my God. Not only did they bleed all over the place, okay? I'm gonna give it a little away for you here, okay? He took his dog collar off at one point, Fishman, wrapped the chain around his fist, and knocked out the ref, and the ref did a blade job.
Yeah, my man. The ref running the razor. There we go.
So then they had to bring out another ref. And then later in the match, the other ref got into it with Mascara Dorada NG. Okay? And then he decked that referee and knocked him out. This match is a fucking riot. They're doing Death Valley drivers through 2 rows of empty seats. Fishman kept taking off the dog collar and wrapping the chain around his fist. This thing is out of control. Okay? It's a tremendous match. Easy notebook. I love these dog collar matches. I can't get enough of them. Every time I see one, they don't miss, Rich.
Yeah, fewer ladder matches, more dog collar matches. That's what we ask. More Bull Terrier matches, less ladder matches.
these dog collar matches do not fucking miss, and I have now decided it's my favorite stipulation.
Hell yeah.
It just is. So, now if you're wondering who Mascara Sagrada NG is, I had the same questions. So I did ask Cubs, and this is a guy who is being billed by Mascara Sagrada as his one true son. And Cubs says it's basically a guy just renting out the name.
So it's not the one.
Absolutely not.
We are being lied to in the world of Lucha Libre. This man
Yeah.
might have a mask and a name that resembles another person, but is not in fact related to or that other person. I can't believe it.
Now, he doesn't know who the guy used to be. He's just some indie guy. He hasn't really pinned that down yet. But it's definitely, definitely maybe not Mascara Sagrada's one true son, because he's also done this with 3 other men in the past as well. Where he rented out the name.
So good.
So that's so Lucha.
It's so Lucha.
It's so Lucha.
Yeah.
So it's so bad too, because the guy's gear doesn't match. He has the Mascara Sagrada typical, the white top with the yellow and black lines all over it.
Right.
But the pants are yellow.
It's
I don't know what's
the
going on
pants
there.
he used before. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what the NG, the letters NG mean at the end of the name. I don't know what that means. But he took over this gimmick in January, and he's been feuding with the son of Fishman, who is really the son of Fishman.
I was gonna now. My next follow up was El Hijo del Fishman. Are we sure
that's real son of
that's
Fishman?
A hit? Okay, it's a real Fishman. All right,
so
that's good.
They've been feuding on the Indies. This match was the match too. There's a wall. There's a mural of NBA players behind.
Oh,
them,
is that
and
that one? Somebody sent me that. Is that match?
Yeah, it's that match. It's
so good.
Luka Doncic, Dennis Rodman on the bull. I think Jason Tatum, either Tatum or Brown, one of the current Celtics. I can't remember which one. Then it's some other big LeBron.
Yeah, it's
right?
LeBron. Yeah, and then isn't there Phoenix Suns era Jason Kidd or something?
No, the last one is Tom Gugliotta or something. Makes no sense.
I remember it was a 90s Phoenix Sun, but I figured it was just Jason Kidd. It's not. It's
no, it's Googs. I think it's Googs.
It's Googs.
I couldn't make it out.
Who did get a banner of Tom Gugliotta?
Look, it's a big white guy with curly hair. I think it's Googs.
Yeah, that sounds about right, man. I'm trying to think of my 90s Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. And it's the uniform with the ball as the comet.
Yeah, right. They're 93 to 99. Yeah, I mean,
so it's all these Hall of Famers and All Stars, and then Tom Gugliotta for some reason.
Joe Klein, or I'm trying to think. It's probably if the guy has curly hair.
I'm telling you, it's Googs.
It's got to be Gugliotta then, yeah.
I have a feeling it's Googs, but even if it isn't, it's not anyone at the level of Luka or
it's not LeBron,
Jason Tatum, or LeBron James,
Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, all surefire, Hall of Famers.
And then Tom Gugliotta. And then these guys are bleeding all over the place. Death Valley drivers through chairs. There's little kids recording it on their phone. These bloodthirsty little animals running around. It is a fucking riot. I loved it. I loved every fucking second of it. Now you got to touch all 4 corners. I don't usually like that gimmick. You got to drag your guy around and touch the corners. But no, everybody was bleeding. The referees were bleeding. The fucking everybody.
Works for me, man. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna carve out some time, watch that sometime in the next couple. It's available on YouTube, right? It's pretty easy to find.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's right there on YouTube. But Mascara Dorada and Fishman, El Hijo de Fishman. Mascara Dorada NG. What do you say?
Or Sagrada. You keep saying Dorada, isn't it Sagrada?
Mascara Sagrada. Yeah.
Sagrada.
You get the idea. It's
gotcha.
It's Lily. Mascara Sagrada. Yeah.
I was like, there's another Dorada hanging around? We have enough already. Jesus Christ.
No, Mascara Sagrada. Mascara.
Yeah.
NG. Mascara Dorada NG versus El Hijo de Fishman. Yeah. It's let me see if it comes up. Maybe I'll just send it to you.
see if
send you on a fucking search here.
We could do that. No, I'm sure I can find it. Fishman and Sagrada. I bet I can find it in 2 minutes. Let's see.
Shockingly, it doesn't come right up. Because you get all like the original guys, the original Fishman.
There we go. Yeah. Heel Del Fishman.
Find it?
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, on YouTube. Mas Lucha, April 13, 2024, 30 minutes, 12 seconds. That looks like it. So, all right. Saved, and I will be watching that sometime in the next day or so. All right, that is it for us. We have done plenty here on this week's Flagship. We'll be back Sunday night, as we said, Instant Reaction Live for AEW Forbidden Door. Immediately following the show, we usually go live about 5 to 10 minutes after the show goes off the air. So that is going to be available exclusively on our $10 tier. We also let you know about all the other stuff going on flagshippatreon.com. A ton of audio this past week, a ton of content. So make sure you go there for bonus audio, bonus written content. All the other good stuff that we have for you is available there at flagshippatreon.com. We didn't get to it on this week's show, but maybe we'll have a chance next week to talk about it. But go to voiceswrestling.com and check out the VOW 30 under 30. A list of the 30 best wrestlers under 30 years old as voted on by our all-star panel. So make sure you go there, voicesofwrestling.com. And as we always like to say, go to voicesofwrestling.com for previews, reviews, columns. Voice of Wrestling Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe to your the whole network as well as your favorite show on the network. And we're signing off, so it's a great time to jump on over to the Mike and JD Show on the same YouTube channel, youtube.com/Voices of Wrestling. Mike and JD have been live for a little bit now, so you can jump into their show right now. So that is it for us. We'll see you guys Sunday for Forbidden Door Instant Reaction Live. That is Joe. I'm Rich. We'll talk to you again next time. Take care. Bye.
Hey now, it's Mike Gilbert, host of the Mike and JD Show, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Join JD by God Oliva and myself every Thursday night live on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we stay up all night discussing all the hottest stories in professional wrestling. You can also check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting feed, or you can subscribe to the Mike and JD Show feed. Now, enjoy the show.